may even get tired of winning, and you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore. Mr. President, it's too much. And I'll say, no, it isn't. We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more.
So true, Mr. President. So true. How you guys doing? Welcome to the Astrolabe. I've got some fun stuff today. We're gonna hit some quick hitters. We're gonna set it up. We got a tip already. Thank you, Jeff Gehrig. Shout out to my Vance Guard. It's good to see all of you. I've got a video here today that I wanna cover. It's a different schizo parts of my past colliding. We have Rich Does Politics interviewing John Harold from Badlands Media, better known as Patel Patriot, the guy who wrote the whole Devolution series. Those of you who've been around for a while, you guys are familiar with the Devolution series, the continuity of government plans that it seems were initiated at some point in the late 2020 period and throughout the transition. And it's very much adjacent to, or kind of a continuation on the QAnon theory, but it's got there's something to it. There's definitely seems to be something to it, and the more time goes on, the more true it seems to become. The big question is, what does it mean? What does it mean? You hear Trump will hint at these sorts of things when he says, this is his third term, and or that he's won 3 elections. He'll hint at these things, and he can hide behind the fact that he's just making like a rhetorical point or something. Well, what if there's a little more to it? It some of it is just, it seems so extremely far fetched, and yet there's so much smoke there that I'm just kind of lingering around and like rubbernecking to see if there's actually going to be flames. Like, there's a big bunch of smoke coming up, and I'm like, I wonder if I'm actually going to get to see some flames today. So I dip in every once in a while, see what they're talking about. And I've shared some of their stuff here on the Lab before, the Badlands Media crew. You guys may have seen Josh Reed from redpill.tv? Redpills.tv, something like that. And then Burning Bright is a guy I've read some of his long posts before. He gets nice and schizo. And these guys are all part of this same crew, Badlands Media, that John Harold is the one who started. So he was on Crypto Rich, or on Rich Does Politics. No one is talking about what Trump did in his last 8 days. What is it? There was something that he did in his last 8 days. Rich does his titles very, very well. No one is talking about what Trump did in his last 8 days. There's a reason. There's a reason the man's channel is doing well. He does his production value is very, very good. So I want to watch as much of that as we can here today, because there's a few things. There's so much that's there. So there's a number of things that John just kind of blows past and doesn't stop and linger on or whatever. So I want to take the opportunity to do some of that. Ben Shapiro on 2X says, man, I want to believe, insert X-Files theme here, but I've been Black Helicopter watching since the days of Bo Greitz and G. Gordon Liddy, and none of this stuff has panned out yet. Yeah. Well, and I think there's something to be said for the best laid plans, reality is a strange, funny thing, and strange, funny things happen, and unique people make unique decisions. There's always that human element at play. I find it interesting, and I want to see whatever signal I can glean from them. He isn't City of London pilled. That's true. Trust plans are, which I think would be pretty interesting to get John Harold City of London pilled. Rich says something to him about it in the interview, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'll go look into that." But he's pretty closely adjacent to a lot of people who already are, and I guess I have to say this here at the outset real quick, that the City of London thing, we were talking about this in the King Pill Discord the other day. The City of London thing should be thought of as a portal, or at least this is how I think of it. It's a portal concept. So you use it to sort of break the old frame. If you understand that there's this place called the City of London that you've never heard of before, but it's massively wealthy and influential and has all these connections, and once you start viewing the world through that lens, it's not like you just magically put on a new lens that's perfect and you can see everything clearly. It's just different. You just see different things than you did before. And then you recognize that there is something to this idea of there being a power base that's emergent out of Europe that's trying to hold on to power and sort of cling to its status at the top, but there's a lot of structural reasons why it can't stay at the top. And then because it was defined as it was built on the backs of a global empire, globe-spanning empire, the things that are happening within those imperial structures are affecting everyone else. And so then they affect everyone else in some senses in the same way, and then some senses in a different way, because everyone else is different. So it actually ends up having a magnifying effect of the characteristics and traits that given regions in the world possess, that are proper to their races, their genetic heritage. So getting too specifically hung up on the City of London, the specific actual location, or the United Kingdom, or the British, or any, you don't want to get overly committed to one particular thing here, because we're talking about the way the world has run for centuries, which means there's a lot of people who are not don't have direct personal connections to that one single region in the world, who are now influenced by that I don't know, like that emergent nature that came out of the behavior of European financiers. So it's become, in a sense, almost it's like the origin point for the globalist belief structure, and it's built according to their priorities. It's guarding against their vulnerabilities. But it's not proper to America. It's something foreign that has been imported into America and imposed upon America, sometimes by Americans. Like, just because there's an American who's doing something doesn't mean that they are like being paid by King Charles or something. It means that person, his or her personal incentives align with the incentives of that faction. This is also why it's retarded to go all in on Israel. Correct. Because once you realize what Israel is with respect to the rest of the world in terms of focus of capital and personal ideological interest, you realize that this is one faction among the so-called elites who are wildly over-indexed on this particular worldview, but it's falling out of fashion. They don't run the world. They have been working in service to the people who run the world, and so they've been getting what they want by working in service to the people who run the world. So it's like you're looking at the footprints, but you're not looking at the one that's leaving the footprints. Just because your IQ is 150, that doesn't justify having a 145 heart rate. That's good. That's very, very good. Yeah, this is the sort of thing that actually I think tends to be a much bigger trap for the high IQ than the low IQ. The low IQ just can't even begin to model these sorts of things, so it doesn't exist to them. You might as well be, I don't know, describing the anatomy of the cell to them or something. It just, you're describing clouds to them. But the high IQ people are the ones who actually can entertain different things on various levels of abstraction, and so they're the ones who tend to go down these, get entrapped by these sort of rabbit holes. But Fox in the Hen House says, wish I could watch live, but I'm busy putting the kids to bed and growing baby number 3 will be in the replay gang. Patriot. Thank you for dropping in, Fox in the Hen House. We have a Patriot mom who is Fox in the Hen House. Wonder what she's like around other women. Thank you, Fox in the Hen House. You're a patriot. So, yeah, so we're going to watch this video of talking about the devolution thing, and we'll go down a couple of these rabbit holes. But there's a number of other things I want to get to before that. So, the very first thing, we were talking in the pre-show about shutting out, and this is a thing I've had saved, bookmarked, since April 16 of 2026. So, what is that, like 4 months now? I've had this in the bookmarks and just never actually did anything with it. But this is what happens in my head every time someone says something or I say something about shutting out.
Quit messing with me or I'm gonna chut out! I'm chutting out! I'm gonna chud everywhere! I'm chutting out! I'm gonna chud! I'm gonna chut out! You're not gonna like me when I'm chuddy!
You're not gonna like me when I'm chuddy. That one's... I'd forgotten about that one. I'm not gonna forget about that one this time. You're not gonna like me when I'm chuddy. I'm chutting out. I need to, I have been negligent to my duties. I need to send this one over to the cyberbully, make sure he's aware of it. Shout out to Uncle Doomer, great follow on X, Powerful Mutual, Uncle Doomer, one of our great posters. Now, this one, yeah, I just have to play it. He's been cranking out a ton of these. Cube LOL. He's had some incredible bangers. He's just firing them out as fast as he can make them. Go follow him. Cube _ LOL. But this one, for very obvious reasons, merited a full play on the Astrolabe live.
Cut my life into pieces. This is my last resort. Suffocation, no breathing. Don't give a fuck if I cut my arm bleeding. This is my last resort. Cut my life into pieces. I reach my last resort. Suffocation, no breathing. Don't give a fuck if I cut my arm bleeding. Do you even care if I die bleeding? Would it be wrong? Would it be right? Ever took my life tonight? Chances are that I might. New relation out of sight. And I'm contemplating
Tobuscus spotted!
Cause I'm losing my sight, losing my mind. Wish somebody would tell me I'm fine. Losing my sight, losing my mind. Wish somebody would tell me I'm fine.
This is what's known as art. Look at the little one! He's got a young patriot down there too. Young Wigapig.
I never realized I was fed too thin. Till it was too late and I was empty within. Hurry, feeding on chaos and living
Piglet
in sin.
Roach.
Devil spiral, where do I begin? It all started when
Piglet
I lost
spotted!
my mother. No love for myself and no love for another. Searching to find a love upon a higher level. Finding nothing but questions and answers. Cause I'm losing my sight, losing my mind. Wish somebody would tell me I'm fine. Losing my sight, losing my mind. Wish somebody
Tobus Pig.
would tell me I'm fine. Nothing's alright. Nothing is fine. I'm running and I'm crying. I'm crying. I'm crying.
It's a Tobus Pig.
I'm crying. I'm crying.
Need to show this to Eastwood.
Cut my life into pieces.
Ask him if this is what Pig Dark looks like.
Resort. Suffocation, no breathing. Don't give a fuck if I cut my arm bleeding. Would it be wrong? Would it be right? Ever took my life tonight? Chances are that I might. Mutilation out of sight. And I contemplate suicide. Cause I'm losing my sight, losing my mind. Wish somebody would tell me I'm fine. Losing my sight, losing my mind. Wish somebody would tell me I'm fine. Nothing's alright.
The little piglet.
Nothing is fine. I'm running and I'm crying.
Look how small the piglet is! That's me and the boys when one of the boys is having a little patriot shutout moment, a little patriot go off moment, and we all show up in support of him. Now, this one here, I don't know if you guys have heard of the Paradox Band. They don't tell you this, but the Clean Girls are actually toxic. Now, I'm going to play this one first on mute. Just watch the first, 10 or 15 seconds of this on mute. And then I'm going to go back and play the actual audio. Will it play? Oh, well, that's stupid. Okay, so there's what they look like. Here's what they sound like. Well, come on! There we go.
3 a.m. once again, shouldn't call you up. I should rip up the pictures you took of us. Every fight that ain't nice, you say you'll leave. We're a car crash that never ends. Please get me out this hopeless romance. What the hell was I thinking?
Black 182.
I wanna run away, but it's hard to leave. 'Cause my heart's
Oh, yeah.
stay you up. My head is saying you're no good for me. It's killing me and I let it. I've had enough and I get it. Sick and tired of finding out that you're no good for me. Yeah, I hate this part, finding out that you're no good for me.
Trust plant source and crime at the disco. Oh man, you killed me. The African American rejects. Oh yeah. Oh, thank you for that, guys. That was great. Yeah, it's totally awesome. This is, if these guys had existed, like, I don't know, how old am I? If these guys had existed like 20 or 25 years ago, they probably would have been my favorite band. Oh, man, that killed me. Crime at the Disco. This one here, I guess you guys can see what the parallel is. This is If Don't Look Back in Anger by Oasis came out in the 1970s.
Slip inside the eye of your mind. Don't you know you might find a better place to play? You said that you've never been, but all the things that you've seen will slowly fade away. So I start a revolution from my bed. 'Cause you said the brains I had went to my head.
The blacks are making funk again. We live in the greatest timeline. So true, Zimmer Dylan.
Times in bloom. Stand up beside the fireplace. Take that look from off your face. Yeah, you ain't ever earned or burned my heart out.
Wait for it.
And so Sally can wait. She knows it's too late as we're walking on by. Her soul's
heater.
Please don't put your life in the hands of a rock and roll band. We'll throw it all away. I'm gonna start a revolution from my bed. 'Cause you said the brains I had
The
went to
country is
my
healing. We just
head.
needed a new president. So true.
Step outside, 'cause summertime's in bloom. Stand up beside the fireplace, 'cause you ain't ever gonna burn my heart out. You ain't ever gonna burn my heart out. So Sally can't wait. She knows it's too late as she's walking on by. My soul slides away, but don't look back in anger. I heard you say.
Sax solo. Ah, yes. Soul or funk cover ever song every way. Now, okay, you guys probably could tell, the dude's not actually singing. This is AI music. Here's the thing. In Trump's America, you can become someone who is known for your great music despite not being able to sing. All you have to be able to do is lip sync well. Lip sync and then construct an entertaining, compelling video to go along with it. There's entire influencer genres building out around this now, and I'm sure it's going to continue to be a thing. And as with all things, there's going to be the ones that are just terrible, god-awful, that make people want to light the world on fire. And then there will be the gems. The gems in there that just, they stumble upon something magical. And you've created a whole new art form. You could basically be like a professional singer who can't sing. Many such cases. Because that's the thing. There already are a whole bunch of them. They just can't sing. They just pretend to sing. They actually can't. They sound terrible. You ever hear Taylor Swift a cappella? Oh! No. So this is an improvement. Straight Buster said there's a joke about AI music and slavery here. USAID gets cut and black kids form garage bands instead of becoming SoundCloud rappers. Curious. So true. How curious is that? Slutty Milk says catching up on YouTube at 2.5x and then I'm over to Kick. I can't wait for Slutty Milk to hear a soul version of Don't Look Back in Anger playing at 2.5x. That's going to be quite an experience. Now, I have to say, please do tip your streamer, tips.kingpill.com, be like Jeff Garrig. Shout out to Creek Dweller gifting a sub to Not a Babylonian, and Pale Morning Dude for the 500 kicks during the pre-show. Please do contribute to the cause here. I am the sole breadwinner for the family, and I am here to entertain you, enlighten you, uplift you, encourage you, inspire you. I am bringing the white pills. Please do not freeload. Go to tips.kingpill.com, pay for your white pill prescriptions, and I'm just going to engage in the current iteration of the gender wars discourse with just one thing. Now, this is going to be a hard thing, I think, for the women that we do have here. This is going to be a hard thing for them to hear. It's going to be let's say this is going to be they had us in the first half sort of a moment. But to the men who make up the majority of the audience, I want to direct this to you. And this is... No, it's not that. I mean, we could sit and listen to that again, but this is from a great poster named Zero HP Lovecraft. He made appearances here on the show in the past when the chief Zoomer, Cooper Brooks, was here with me. And he said he was someone we picked out. We coined this term, the Goonic. Someone we picked out that was the king of the Goonics, the guy who most epitomized what we were talking about, which was these guys who were like super based, and they would say all the like totally like amazing based stuff, and they're like so racist and like they're red pilled on women, and they know all about the JQ, and they're so cool and based and awesome. And then there would be that last little percentage of them where you would hear the ultimate upshot of their message was, you'll never get ahead. You're forever doomed. All you can do is sit around and wait for daddy to come save you. Someday daddy will show up and save you. And so until then, you just need to seethe and resentment. And it's interesting now looking back at that and looking at how that sort of thing progressed. But interestingly enough, Zero HP Lovecraft was, after I think we must have done it to him. You know, we called him out. We called him out for his goonicry, and then he disappeared from the scene for several months, maybe a year even, and then came back a changed man. Just very, very different. He's quite a fascinating thinker, and controversial. We'll say controversial, even among people who like him, I think. But a fantastic wordsmith. And he was interviewed for this Substack here, and wrote. It was just an email interview, so he wrote back his responses. And we dropping off here. I see the stream just went down on YouTube, and comments are not coming in on Kick. It says it's unstable. So I guess we're having one of these nights tonight. We'll wait. We'll wait until the stream gets back. There's the F's over on Kick. And then open widget. YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth stream. Well, yeah, because the internet is down. For whatever reason, it appears to be back now. We back maybe, back, stream back. Okay, there we go. We are back. No idea why it does it. It's inexplicable, but it does. So we just wait for it to stop doing it. So Zero HP Lovecraft sat down for this email interview. Very, very interesting writer. I'm not going to read the whole thing because the thing that I'm going to read you here is going to be it's scandalous. It's scandalizing, and it's meant to be scandalizing, and it's not even the most scandalizing thing he says in the over the course of the entire interview. But on the subject of women, they're talking about amor fati, love your fate, and he was asked, how do we love our fate with regard to women? He says, well. I do not think it is possible to overstate how vile and execrable and contemptible women are. I'm sorry. I say that, and I sort of hope that people read it as if it were deadpan and serious, but every time I say something like that, I'm actually laughing out loud, totally cackling. Maybe you've heard that Kafka used to stay up late into the night roaring with laughter at his own works as he wrote them, to the point that it annoyed his neighbors. I find that very relatable. When I make bombastic purple prose assertions about the abyssal depths of my passionate hatred of women, I think it's very funny to say things like that. I don't care if anyone laughs. This is my answer to your question. There's a level where I actually really do believe that women are so unutterably and irredeemably horrible that it's impossible to even convey it in print. You know that old chestnut about how could God create a stone so heavy that he couldn't move it? Does God transcend logic and possibility? Well, I think woman is the answer. I think women are so sinful that the self-sacrifice of an omnipotent God couldn't redeem them. Christ died in vain for women. He couldn't do it. They were too wicked. And the only sanity-preserving response to this state of affairs, the only response of a socially well-adjusted man who comprehends this truth, is to laugh at its sheer absurdity. Because the other side of the coin is that, God, we need them so badly in this impossible, unslakable way, as much as we need air. It's a need that transcends language and rationality. I would walk barefoot over broken glass to etc. princess. You know, this is the duality of man. When a woman presses her body close to you, when you take her, that's the only time you ever feel a transient relief from the imminent existential doom that you feel every moment that is crushing down upon you like a hydraulic press on the wine glass of your soul. My cup overflows. They are just so cute, and they are in league with Satan, and it's all you can do to not shower them in love and affection and care. You would gladly die in some cases to protect them from harm, to stop them from crying their lying, affected crocodile tears. And they know it, and they exploit you as much as you let them. And you know they are exploiting you, but you let them do that because that's how you are wired. You evolved to love Satan. Curse your fate, curse yourself, you can't help it. When Satan puts on a short skirt and gives you that flirty, pouty look, you will commit atrocities. The most underrated scientific finding I know of is that when scientific evidence is presented to people that is flattering to women or denigrating to men, everyone believes it. But when scientific evidence is flattering to men or negative to women, everyone automatically dismisses it or forgets it. And there's some stories here that are sources. We are built from the ground up to believe certain fitness-enhancing lies. As men, we have to be like this. We have to have an insane, irrational bias in favor of women because otherwise we would never suffer them at all. I don't believe it's possible to love women, to truly love a woman, unless you also know how to hate them. And no one loves women less than the supposedly enlightened man, the ally, the egalitarian, the champion of women's rights, the defender of women, the apologist for them who is so quick to condemn men and male nature. That man doesn't love women because he has never met a woman. He has always only seen his own illusory conception of them. He is an idolater who worships a graven image of women. He has never once beheld her for what she is, for a devil. To love women is to love the devil. And in that sense, I am a Satanist. I think that was it keeps going on beyond that. But this here is, yes. This is the paradox of the fairer sex. The entire world is built around women, around and for the sake of women. Every man acts for the sake of the women in his life. And every woman exists in the context in the context that was built for her by the men in her life. This is a fundamentally baseline reality. And when the women go, but let's put it this way. Whenever a bunch of men start getting really mad about the behaviors of women, it's obvious very quickly that their expectation is that women are going to behave like men. And they're mad that women are wired differently than men. They're basically a different species. They are wired the way they are on purpose. They're not broken. They're women. And so every man is going to go through this passage in his life where he can't describe why he is drawn toward women, why he just is like, his whole being is oriented toward women. And yet they're making him insane because he's trying to experience, he's not actually engaging with the women. He's holding the women up on a pedestal and engaging with his own imagination of them, which is some sort of man's projection, projecting man's consciousness into the woman. And so when you have that perspective, it disables you from being able to exist properly with respect to women. This is why the society, when society becomes a gynocracy, when the longhouse reigns, this is because men stopped beholding women for what they are. And in the same sense, you could take a lot of this and there's an equal and opposite thing for women with respect to men. The women who are, let's say they're like the check engine light. The warning light is flashing. the women who are like orient their lives around man hating, you can tell they are reflecting back what their experience of men has been. And so they hate the men that they have experienced. So they're actually expressing, they're the warning light that's flashing, expressing that they have been insufficiently, let's say, domesticated by the men in their lives, starting with her husband or her father or her grandfather. Who knows how generationally how far back it goes? Does she come from a line of dysfunctional women, which would be a product of dysfunctional men? Everything is going to start with the men. This is the jokes about women not having agency are actually, like, there's a little something to it. Like, obviously you have to kind of define what agency means, but I think where it's true, it's that women don't have the ability to like independently create new contexts. It's a man's world. They're living in a man's world. The men define the boundaries within which they live. And so the way that women create new contexts is through men, either by being given a child or by inducing a man to go do something. This is an age-old trope of the guy who goes and conquers great armies and expands his territory at the behest of his woman. So women have the power of wielding men, but they still operate within the constraints established by men. So in that sense, they don't have like base level agency. Women are always in a state of reactivity toward men. But yeah, so toward men, young men especially, if you find yourself in the mindset of hating women, you got to realize that loving them is beyond that point. You're on the way. You're on the way. You have to go through a season where you hate them. And then you move beyond that. And then you realize that they're so cute and they're in league with Satan, and it's all you could do to not shower them in love and affection and care. You would gladly die in some cases to protect them from harm, to stop them from crying their lying affected crocodile tears. This is properly ordered. I'll have more on this actually, you know what? Let me see if I can find this one particular, I don't know if I'll be able to get this. There is this one particular tweet that would be really good. If I can find it quickly, then I'll show it. And if I can't, then I will, yeah. Here you go. This one right here. So this chick posts this. Make sure, am I sharing? Yeah. Chick posts this picture here of this guy and with the chick here, and says, "Let me just die." And this guy says, "Women act like little girls if they feel protected and very attracted to you. They act like a mom when they think you're a worthless loser. It is what it is. So much of the discourse on here is people being mad about biological impulses." And he says, I'm going to be very clear. I'm not suggesting men find this behavior attractive. I don't want to date a little girl, nor do normal men. It's a response that does occur, especially in the early stages that she grows out of as the relationship progresses. Ideally, two adults bring out the best in each other and grow together over time. Unfortunately, that's not always the case when one party overcompensates in one direction or is lacking in maturity. The most successful marriages I've observed, the man is dominant and leads. And then this one here says, i.e., it's okay for women to seek a father in relationships, and it's gross and unacceptable when men seek a mother in relationships. Yes. Yes. Correct. Varangian!
God bless our women, but they need firm leadership. Eve fell first, after all.
I would say what is borne out by the gospel narrative is that it was actually Adam's negligence that preceded Eve's sin. Why was she out there by herself? And her sin wasn't fully consummated until Adam reciprocated it. A core component of her sin was the step of extending it to him, and then him being tested and him giving in. And then he turns around and he tells God, he's like, God, the woman that you gave me, she sucks. You know, she's defective. So it actually, I think, is like it was it's perfect. Yeah, he failed the shit test, right? Yeah, Adam failed a shit test. That was the thing. So when you fail a shit test, is that her fault or your fault? Women are made to shit test. So if you fail the shit test, then you can't be like, oh, she shit tested me. That's not fair. No, like, you don't understand women. You don't understand that women are living, breathing shit testing machines. This is the way that men are honed and refined. So if you fail shit tests and then you blame the woman for the shit test that you failed, you're a loser. A whole lot of people failing some big shit tests right now. Now, speaking of women, my president had to discipline another one. My president is the best at disciplining women.
Quiet. You're very disrespectful in front of this young man. Okay? Don't you find her disrespectful? He understands. Quiet. Who are you with?
I'm with CNN.
Fake news.
I
You're
just wanted
fake
to follow up
news.
on this out-
You're a loud, boisterous person. You're fake news.
I was
Be
trying to
quiet.
find out if
Be
you had
quiet.
been talking
Be
to
quiet.
someone who would have asked you
You're a
to
fake
scale back
reporter, and you
on the
report fake
military
news.
exercise.
Go ahead.
Bludgeoning her.
Mr. President, is there enough food on the USS Lincoln?
Yeah, it is. That was a CNN fake report.
Just never stops. The man never stops going. I love how the first thing he does, he like smacks her down and then he's like, hey bro, like back me up here. And then he's like, oh, it's like a 12-year-old right here. But he's like, hey bro, back me up on this. She sucks, right? And then, speaking of connections with young men, the 2-year-old mini Trump that President Trump held up at his 2016 rally is back and wants to reunite with Trump 10 years after the famous rally. Remember this picture here? Remember this video of this kid? This kid right here. Kid was touched by the Trump.
What's your name?
Nay.
Now, he's supposed to look like Donald Trump, but he's actually much too good looking. You are really handsome. Are you having a good
He's
time?
so good at it.
Night.
Where's your daddy? And your mommy, right?
So notice what he's realized here quickly, because my president notices patterns. He's very, very good at patterns. And he notices that the kid's just repeating the last word that he says in the question that he asks him.
Do you want to go back? Do you want to go back to them, or do you want to stay with Donald Trump?
Jump.
My president is a master neurolinguistic programmer, an expert grandfather. So here is this kid now.
President Trump, 10 years ago we met for the first time in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. I spent the last 10 years on your campaign supporting you and your presidency. I'm wondering if we could reunite for our 10-year anniversary. I will fly anywhere to see you. My mom said it's okay. Thank you. President Trump, 10 years ago we met.
And Dan Scavino responded to him and said that that they're going to be bringing him to the White House. Absolutely excellent stuff. This it makes me legitimately angry when I think about the sort of accusations that they've made about the man. Obviously, he's not a perfect man, but there's his demeanor around children. If you don't see the purity of his soul in the way that he relates to young people and to children, if your soul is dead. How do you not recognize that the man is obviously an extremely doting father and grandfather, a germophobic a teetotaler. He is a character of a picture of discipline. Has raised all of his children who all love him. No scandals. They're all completely devoted to him. And the sorts of things that they have said about him, the mud that they've dragged his name through just makes me angry.
Beautiful, everything's beautiful. There's only one problem. I walk into the store, I said, what's going on here? Every shelf has glass on it, and it's got a lock and a key. I said, why do you do that? How do you live like that? You want a toothbrush, or you want a little toothpaste, or you want to get a little Dove soap. You know, you have nice skin. You want Dove. You can pour it gently on your face. Keep your skin very nice. You want a little of that good hair that can puff up your hair a little bit more. So it makes you look like you have 4% more hair than you had. They charge you a fortune. And you have to call the clerk. Sir, would you please help me? Yes, sir, I will. They open up a door at the last door. They give you a bottle of shampoo. Give me a break. And that's because nothing happens to these criminals. Nothing happens to them. It's not like that in other places. It's not like that in other blue states. But it's not like that in Republican states. I can tell you that.
My president and his patriot monologues. I love how what would you say? It's like he's self-consciously or self-deprecatingly vain. So he's like, you know, the thing he thinks of is like getting more volume in your hair. Make sure your hair looks good. You have to go to a clerk. Sir, please help me. It's official. President Trump and Marco Rubio are redirecting $2 billion in Christian humanitarian groups after major cuts were made to USAID. With World Vision, Samaritan's Purse, and others on the list, this will be much more effective than sending our dollars into black hole NGOs. Now, I appreciate Eric Doherty for being the constant champion of the cause that he is. I'm not under any sort of illusions that World Vision and Samaritan's Purse and some of these other NGOs aren't already as bad as some of the existing ones, or couldn't be made to be as bad. What this is, the significance of this is, number one, punishing enemies and rewarding friends. The administration has been the most openly intentionally, openly, deliberately Christian all the time. So redirecting all of this to Christian groups does definitely cut it off from a bunch of problematic ones. It also means that just the simple moving of the funds around is a way to get rats to start scattering. You redirect the funds, and then you watch to see which people move. Which people's behavioral patterns change. And then this one here, Trump said, big win at the U.S. Court of International Trade on one of the most despicable loopholes in American trade policy, the so-called de minimis exemption. For years, foreign shippers could send packages worth up to $800 into our country, duty-free, no tariff, far less scrutiny. It became a giant loophole for tariff cheats and a pipeline exploited by fentanyl traffickers, counterfeiters, and other criminals shipping dangerous and illegal products into America. The numbers were staggering. In 2024 alone, de minimis cost America an estimated $10.8 billion in foregone tariff revenue. Varangian again!
My sophomore year in college, Dan Scavino had my freshman dorm room. In the 90s, my dumb aunt, God bless her, would forget and mail me to my old freshman dorm room. Scavino found my current dorm and 3 times brought me my mail. King and Patarot.
Patarot. Oh, is it King and Patarot? Patarot, Dan Scavino. Thank you, Frangian. What an anecdote. See, I knew I liked Dan Scavino. That's a big move. Living in a dorm, going and actually giving the guy your mail or his mail that gets sent to your place, rather than just leaving it there or just giving it to the front desk or whatever. Actually going and giving it to him. What a good guy. Thank you, Varangian. In 2024 alone, de minimis cost America an estimated $10.8 billion in foregone tariff revenue. So this is if the packages are worth less than $800, and I assume this would be like declared value, then there is no tariff applied to them. So the foreign shippers would just break their packages up into ones that were small enough that they were under $800. And an astonishing share of narcotics and counterfeit seizures came through the de minimis channel. So we closed it with the stroke of my mighty pen. No auto pen. We ended this ridiculous giveaway and made foreign goods play by the rules. The importers sued. Today, they lost. The court ruled that the president had the legal authority to rescind this so-called privilege. America is now safer, our workers are better protected, and billions in tariff revenue that used to slip through this loophole can instead help pay for our great military, tax relief, no tax on tips, and no tax on Social Security. America first trade and America first law enforcement. President Donald J. Trump. You see, they're telling you exactly what the intent here is, that the tariff revenue becomes a permanent fixture that actually pays for government services. And then shout out to Isolationist here. If you've been wanting to follow Slutty Milk on X, then here is your opportunity. Go follow him at Isolationist. He says, we love our husky ice patriots, don't we, folks? Check out this fugitive operations. This is one of Stephen Miller's most important weapons.
It can't be bargained with. It can't be reasoned with. It doesn't feel pity or remorse or fear, and it absolutely will not stop ever until you are dead.
Don't you know who I am? I'm the Juggernaut, bitch!
The Juggernaut! Stephen Miller's got himself a juggernaut. Forbes says Trump is now restricting all legal immigration categories. We are going to send the juggernaut after even the legals. Trump, listen to this sentence. Trump is now restricting all legal immigration categories. Is there a more simplified way for the retards out there? Is there a more simplified way? Can we dumb this down for you any more than this? Trump is restricting all legal immigration categories. Half of the world is under travel restrictions. Entry paths are narrower. Legalization is rarer. From employment to education, processing has stalled. The agenda, quote, the agenda is focused on the elimination of legal immigration. We got a Cooper in the chat? Look at that. Cooper J. Brooks. That's a fellow whose voice I heard in my ears just this morning. No more mud people. So true, sir. So true. The Trump administration is restricting all legal immigration categories in an effort to reduce the flow of immigrants to America. The restrictions include freezes by U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services and State Department officials refusing to process applications abroad. And, whoops, the absolute patriot prowler here. Masterful work. Exquisite. The Trump administration has also stopped all refugees from entering the United States, except white people from South Africa. One more time. The Trump administration has stopped all refugees from entering the United States, except white people from South Africa. Trump officials have significantly reduced legal immigration in 2026 and will continue to do so. In an effort to meet arrest quotas, Immigration and Customs Enforcement is arresting people with pending applications, including individuals sponsored for permanent residence. So, They're actually arresting even the people whose applications are pending. What amazes me about Trump's mass deportation agenda is how much of the focus and financial resources are really on eliminating legal immigration. And they're not embarrassed about that, said Curtis Morrison of Red Eagle Law. The Trump administration's policies affect all immigration categories. Diversity visa paused. Random H-1B lottery ended. H-1B, F-1, J-1, and OPT holders face new bureaucratic hurdles. Visa processing frozen on 75 countries. A travel ban on 39. Public charge rule enforced for the first time in a century. Refugee admissions at record low. Only white South Africans accepted. Interior asylum denials at record high. Lawful entry down 99.9%. Naturalization denials double. Processing slows. Green card issuance cut in half. All residents under review. Forbes also alarms that ICE has begun arresting visa overstays and unlawful pending applicants instead of letting them stay like previous admins would. Now terminated TPS holders, the clog of DACA recipients and wannabe asylees, are at higher risk of removal than ever as well. Oh, Straight Buster says no different than Kamala, by the way. Yes. Yes, Bloody Milk. Literally unthinkable 3 years ago. Now, I have to read this part here. In a new Board of Immigration Appeals decision, the Trump administration has stated that individuals will no longer be allowed to leave the country on advance parole and re-enter the United States with lawful admission. This could prevent a DACA recipient from marrying a U.S. citizen and gaining permanent residence after leaving on advance parole and returning with a lawful entry, notes Charles Cuck of Cuck Baxter. Man's name is Chuck Cuck. I honestly, maybe I got to give him some credit. Maybe I got to give him some credit for just owning it. Just going out there and just living with it. Yeah, that's right. My name's Chuck Cuck. What are you going to do about it? I'd name my law firm after myself. Nominative determinism. Yeah. Mellon says, yes, and anecdotally, they are doing renewals on most welfare. I know a guy who had to renew and didn't get kicked off. He was white. Interesting. Can Cock the Chuck. Charles Cock, of course. That's so good. Miriam Jordan of the New York Times reported on a Russian-born woman with a green card application pending after applying for asylum and marrying an American citizen. ICE arrested her off a domestic flight and placed her in detention. Once again, Trump is now restricting all legal immigration categories. And it's now official, over 1 million migrants stand to be deported after the Supreme Court ruling forces activist judges to concede defeat and allow TPS to be terminated. Somalia and Ethiopia TPS blocks have been lifted and DHS is full steam ahead to deport. So the Trump administration has moved to end TPS for more than 1 million immigrants. This is countries with temporary protected status, designations that were terminated by the second Trump administration. And here's the nations they're from: Afghanistan, Cameroon, Haiti, Honduras, Myanmar, Nepal, Nicaragua, South Sudan, Syria, Venezuela, Yemen, Ethiopia, and Somalia. Those blocks have now been lifted. Their TPS termination has been unblocked. They will be removed. Captive Dreamer says, very good. Like I keep saying, if you want to actually understand what the Trump administration is doing in regards to immigration, just go to mainstream media sources like this and you'll be far better informed than anyone on here. The Trump administration has been quietly deporting migrants from Mexico to different countries in Central America, despite the Mexican government's willingness to accept the return of all its citizens, two Department of Homeland Security officials told CBS News. U.S. immigration authorities have been sending deportees from Mexico to Guatemala and Honduras, flying them around Mexican territory instead of returning them to their homeland, the DHS official said, requesting anonymity because they were not authorized to talk to the media. The official said one of the objectives of the deportations, which have not been formally announced by the U.S. government, is to deter illegal immigration from Mexico by sending some of its citizens further south. Mexico, we're willing to take back our citizens. You can trust us. America, cool. Fortnite drop, scattering them across Guatemala and Honduras. Fortnite drops. The Trump administration is Fortnite dropping Mexicans all over Central America, and you're blackbilling? Deportations. This is the White House account. Deportations are surging and will continue. Over 1 hour of large deportations.
Large deportations, 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 large deportations.
So true, Mr. President. Incredibly true. Who was it who said everything's coming up chud? Who was that? What an observation. It's so true. President Trump stuns America by revealing the U.S. Census Bureau has found potentially 24,000 non-citizen voters in the 2020 election. Interesting. What do they mean by this? 32 million more voters will be analyzed. He says, here.
Department of Homeland Security, according to the DHS review of state voter rolls and public records, they identified approximately 278,000 non-citizens who are registered to vote in federal elections. Since Democrat states refuse to share their voter files, the real number is actually much higher than that. Yet, even this limited analysis found more than 250,000 foreigners illegally registered to vote. Put together, these disclosures reveal an election system so broken and so vulnerable that no one can possibly defend it.
So we've got a drumbeat here. The Census Bureau has begun checking the voter records from 2020 against their citizenship records. On the first 128 million voters, the Census Bureau proves that over 24,000 non-citizens voted illegally. The Census Bureau is going to analyze the next 32 million voters, and this number will explode. I won the election. We must pass the Save America Act. Thank you for your attention to this matter. For what it's worth, I believe that the actual, when you break it down to the actual states where the vote was the closest and the electoral votes made the biggest difference for Trump, it was I think it was something like 30,000 votes across the country that made the difference. It might have been a little more than that, might have been a little less than that. But this was the margins are very, very narrow. Because it's not the absolute number of votes. It's not the popular vote, of course. It's the Electoral College that that has to be won. And so there was that sudden spike of like 10 million votes that happened that Joe Biden got. Like, you look at the total number of votes, all of a sudden there's this big spike of 10 million extra votes. Yet the 2020 election actually only came down to a small handful of counties in Pennsylvania, Arizona, and Georgia that were decided by a few tens of thousands of votes. So 24,000 non-citizens voting illegally by itself could be enough to swing a presidential election. Now, the Census Bureau, if it's gone through the first 128,000 or 128 million voters, I would imagine these would be the voting records, mostly from red states. Going to be the states that are the most cooperative with the Department of Justice in giving them all of their voting records. So you would think then those are less likely to have as much fraud in them. He says the Census Bureau is going to analyze the next 32 million voters, and this number will explode, presumably because the next 32 million voters are from states where the fraud problem is much worse. Where the non-citizen voters were born, Mexico, overwhelmingly of these, Canada, Philippines, Jamaica, Germany, United Kingdom, Cuba, Vietnam, Haiti, and South Korea. United Kingdom, Germany. Interesting. So there were 160 million ballots cast in the 2020 general election, and 128 million of those voter records are linked to U.S. citizens. 24,000 so far are linked to non-citizens, and then they've got 32 million left to analyze. This is an interesting one dropped here just this afternoon from Secretary Markwayne Mullin. He says, thank you to the governor of New Jersey, this hag. We got news from your Secretary of State that New Jersey will participate with DHS in stopping aliens from illegally voting in your state. The 35,000 potential registered aliens we identified may only be the beginning. Looking forward to helping New Jersey identify illegal voters and ensure election integrity. This was not an announcement that was made by the governor's office. This was an announcement that was made by DHS after they privately, quietly agreed with them on this. So he's just like, hey, FYI, public, just so you know, look at this. They've made this agreement. Cooper, Matt, let me in. I don't have a way of letting you in right now. I don't have it set up to, I can't bring in a guest on the stream as it's set up right now. But Cooper and I were talking earlier today about the possibility of a Cooper reappearance on the Lab. Perhaps that will happen at some point in the near future. Okay. Spread your legs. CNN says the map is favorable for Republicans in the 2026 midterms. We couldn't talk about voting and midterms and stuff without letting Harry come in and talk about his charts for a minute.
These were the 2024 presidential results. Based upon redistricting, Trump won the median House seat by 5 points. My goodness gracious, that means that Democrats have to win at least one seat.
Fix the census, reign forever. 1447.
Thank you, Arthurian Magadate. $10. I don't know why the... Did you guys get the money printer sound in your ear? I didn't get it. I just heard the voice all of a sudden and it startled me.
That means that Democrats have to win at least one seat that Trump won by 5 points. What about in the United States Senate? It's even more difficult for Democrats. They have to win at least one seat that Donald Trump won, get this, by 13 points. Woof! That is very, very difficult indeed. So if the map looks anything like it did in 2024, well, Democrats definitely have their work cut out for them in the Senate and in the House as well. Now,
so this is part of the reason why I've been saying the Republicans are not only going to maintain their majority, they're going to increase it because of just how far uphill the Democrats have to pull themselves, and their total lack of compelling narrative or candidates or the total party disarray, all sorts of funding and investigations, funding being withheld and investigations being opened into people. They're fighting wars on all kinds of different fronts, and they have nothing compelling to get the vote out for, apart from whatever retard right narratives they can try to piggyback off of. In Trump 1.0, TDS afflicted the libs. In Trump 2.0, TDS afflicted the retard right. And now the libs' only hope is that the retard right can muck things up enough to demoralize Republican voters enough that they turn out underwhelmingly. And thus far, it seems as if the exact opposite is happening. Before I go a little further, let me just check for an update here. Oh, great. Alexander VENMO just lost the U.S. Senate Democratic primary. So he's going to go up against Ashley Moody. Polls are closed in the Panhandle. So last I saw before I went live, the voter turnout in Florida was massive, absolutely massive for Republicans. They're pouring out at huge numbers. With about 60% reporting for the Florida governor primary election, we're reminded that the internet and podcasts aren't real life. Byron Donalds, 49.8% of the vote. Jay Collins, 24.7% of the vote. James Fishback, 9.4% of the vote. Corey Mills, unseated from Congress. He was a guy that Democrats were preparing to use his restraining order baggage against him at the general. So there's a guy named Ryan Elijah now running against him. And oh, man, look what this dude looks like. This is the dude taking over who just beat Corey Mills and is going to run in his stead. I don't know anything about him. This is the first time I've ever heard of him. But
president 4 times. Okay, but he has his endorsement. But again,
you mentioned Sheriff Chitwood.
Take that for what it's worth. I just wanted to see an update on the total voter numbers for Republicans in Florida. Let's see here. Pro-Doge Florida Chief Financial Officer Blaise Ingoglia wins the GOP primary. Ingoglia has not only found $3 billion in waste, fraud, and abuse in county governments, but dropped this line on terrorists thinking about harming Florida cops. All right, we'll bring this back over here.
You know, I think
we've got another one.
I will tell you that Florida law enforcement does not stand for any of that crap. If you are going to come after our law enforcement with the intent to hurt or kill law enforcement, expect to be dead. Expect to be put in the ground because they're not going to stand for it. They shouldn't stand for it. They have every right to protect themselves, to get home to their families, and we are going to stand with them when incidents like that happen. And I think
so. This is pro Doge Florida Chief Financial Officer Blaise Ingoglia. Let me see if I can find what's this? Jake Shields trying to spell. It's neck and neck with Dan versus Randy. So get out and vote in District 6. So true, Jake Shields. Thanks for that. Hey, look at that. Miranchuk spotted, getting the Rachel Wilson signal boost. Go listen to Jason Miranchuk. His apocalypse report. The man was cooking. Pay the man. Pay me too. Tips.kingpill.com. Tip your streamer, folks. Okay, traders are forecasting James Fishback to get 10.5% of the vote in the Florida Republican governor primary as of 7:33 p.m. Eastern. That's pretty close to about where he is. There are Bilzerian Donalds voting, just for the record. So there are people who are voting for Dan Bilzerian and Byron Donalds. I would like a psychological profile on that person. How are you voting? So you're anti-Randy Fine, but you're pro-Byron Donalds. Very, very odd. Okay, so this guy, if you're not following Tonerus Hayes, Latinx adjacent Dr. PhD, one of the best elections analysts on X. I've seen enough. Angie Dixon has won the Democratic primary for Senate in Florida. She has less than $500K in cash on hand and beat VENMO, who raised over $15 million so far this year. Betting markets had this as 98.7% VENMO as of 4 hours ago. The prediction markets are... This election cycle is going to substantially change the way that prediction markets are seen and used. Randy Fine beat Dan Bilzerian. Republican win. I want to find... I figured they would have more updates on this story, so I didn't open something before we started. But, yeah, here you go. Republicans destroying Dems in Florida primary turnout. It was... what is this? Socialist candidate Oliver Larkin resoundingly loses Democratic primary to Jared Moskowitz. Massive blow to the DSA in the state of Florida. Jared Moskowitz is one of the guys who's he has his moments as far as the Democrat goes. He has his moments. Debbie Wasserman Schultz just won the Democratic House primary for Florida 20, a plurality black district. All right, so man, I'm this midterms is going to destroy the Democrat Party, man. The blacks are not going to share a party with the DSA types. Anna Paulina Luna wins uncontested. Ashley Moody wins GOP primary. James Uthmeyer, Patriot, wins the GOP primary uncontested. Man. Okay, I have notifications turned on for too many people. Here we go. Polls just closed in Florida. The turnout is deep red over R plus 13. Election day votes. Republicans voted almost 2-1. And this is like, I guess this is not quite 2-1. This is like 1.75 to 1 or something like that on election day. Total votes. Republicans cast 1.5 million votes. Democrats cast 1.266 million. Republicans are overperforming before November, where we need a red sweep to pick up 4 House seats thanks to Governor Ron DeSantis' redistricting. So, we keep seeing this. Republicans overperforming, Trump Republicans performing better with regards to versus the I don't know, we'll just say that the Patriots are coming up winners constantly. 2026 polls continue to massively oversample left-wing demos, which should be a huge source of concern for Democrats going into November, but for some reason isn't. So I reanalyzed the raw data from Wisconsin's primary polls. Here's what actually went wrong. The average error of a Senate or governor primary election poll is about 13 points. This is because pollsters have fewer benchmarks for variables that correlate with vote choice in a primary, and because the race can change very quickly late. As of now, no pollster who is in the field in Wisconsin has published a full retrospective of their numbers based on a reanalysis of their data. In this article, I'm going to do just that. So based on the analysis below, I conclude that most of the miss in polls in Wisconsin is attributable to faulty demographic targets, too many young people. This inflated Hong's vote margin by somewhere between 5 and 10 points. Remember, this is Francesca Hong, the crazy chick who hates Thanksgiving. My best guess is that the race moved 6 to 10 points toward Crowley after pollsters released their final surveys. And then non-ignorable non-response within demographic categories likely further inflated Hong's vote margin by 2 to 5 points. There's a longer analysis here that I skimmed through. That's kind of the gist of it. There's structural problems with the polling that is causing them to keep missing. Then there's another bit of work done here by Patrick Ruffini. Qantas Insight says really interesting work from Patrick Ruffini. Across 3,312 Senate polls over 4 cycles, he finds a D plus 7 average error, with 73% overstating Democrats. So 73% of the Senate polls are overstating Democrat influence and leading to, on average, an error that's almost 4 points in the Democrat direction. Even more interesting is that the error peaks around D plus 5.9 in late July before narrowing toward Election Day. Isn't that interesting? So in the late summer, Democrat polling peaks in its error to almost 6 points off. And then it begins to narrow toward Election Day, which means we're right on the tail end of that. And what are we seeing? Things are beginning to narrow. Things are going to continue to narrow. That adds an important dimension to what we found in our broader Qantas Insights April 23, 2025 study. We documented a persistent post-2016 directional error, including roughly D plus 4.2 across presidential battlegrounds, with some of the largest misses among working-class, rural, and non-college electorates. Aside from this problem being directional, there's also a seasonal component too, particularly in midterms, when summer polling can substantially overstate Democratic strength. It's not until days into October before the electorate comes into clearer focus. So if the pattern persists, if you knew about this data ahead of time, you would say, okay, so the midterms narrative is going to look about as bad as it could possibly look for Republicans around end of July, beginning of August. And then for the next 2 months or so, it's going to narrow and it's going to look better and better for Republicans. Right now, already people are talking about the midterms looking like a toss-up. It's gone from, oh, it's a super long shot, the incumbent party never wins, midterms for a lame duck president, they always go against him, to now it's increasingly, oh, it's looking like a toss-up. I can imagine where it's going to be in about 2 months, which means there's going to have to be some substantial psyops, some substantial demoralization campaigns undertaken to try to counteract that effect. So stand your ground, patriots. Be on your guard. Massachusetts mayor arrested for allegedly ripping off $1.5 million in COVID funds. Start with the little fish. The prosecution phase is beginning. You want arrests? The arrests are coming. They're drip, 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 dripping. Here's a bigger one. Major Fauci advisor David Morens pleads guilty for conspiracy to defraud the United States. He was involved in hiding federal records during COVID. Morens could blow the whistle regarding even more would-be criminal activity by Fauci, if not for the pardon, which could aid state cases. Florida is investigating Fauci, and his presidential pardon doesn't protect him from prosecution at the state level. So this is a big get. David Morens pleads guilty specifically for conspiracy to defraud the United States. That's a very interesting charge. It said down here, the defendant agrees to plead guilty to count 1 of the indictment, which charges the defendant with conspiracy to commit offenses and to defraud the United States in violation of 18 U.S.C. 371. The defendant admits that the defendant is, in fact, guilty of the offense and will so advise the court. Let's see. It says the defendant agreed with at least 1 other person to defraud the United States or commit offenses against the United States, including violations of these. So, agreed with at least 1 other person, which means there is likely going to be another indictment, or this indictment, there's already an indictment out there for whomever the at least 1 other person was. Now, Secretary Chris Wright, Energy Secretary, as of about a week ago now, I've had this one in the hopper for a week, said thanks to the coordinated efforts of the U.S. military and our Gulf allies, the 7-day average for oil leaving the Strait of Hormuz is currently up to almost 9 million barrels per day. When combined with the additional 5 to 7 million barrels per day leaving the region via newly upgraded pipelines and export facilities, total oil flows are currently averaging approximately 15 million barrels per day. On Sunday alone, over 20 million barrels left the Arabian Gulf region. Notice they call it the Arabian Gulf and not the Persian Gulf. The people in the brownoids in the replies were very upset about that. On Sunday alone, over 20 million barrels left the Arabian Gulf region, which is above the pre-conflict average. Everyone is just sitting there looking at the same old data, saying, oh, I don't see their transponders. I don't see them going through. Yeah, they're turning their transponders off. It's really that simple. There's a bunch of people who have been following this, and I've been following them for a while, and they're like, yeah, the ships are transmitting the strait more and more and more. They're just turning their transponders off as they come up to the choke point. They turn their transponders off, and then when they exit it, they turn them back on again. So if you're tracking transponder traffic through the strait, yeah, it's going to look like it's down. And there's more than one way to get through the strait. This here from Axios said This U.S. official said around 8 million barrels of oil are going out of the Gulf every night through the southern lane of the Strait of Hormuz in coordination with the U.S. military. The U.S. is going to try and get more oil out as long as there is no deal. So this would be the Omani pathway down through the southern part of the strait. We're seeing exactly what Scott Bessent has said we're going to see, that the value of the Strait of Hormuz is going to be deprecated because Iran tried to pull their Trump card, and it turns out that my president has a bigger Trump card, and his actually works. So they said, okay, we're going to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. And he's like, all right, bet, we're going to route around you. And we're going to take out like 3 or 4 levels of your government just for funsies. Meanwhile, something very strange is happening across Europe. In the span of a single week, NATO countries have seen a remarkable series of incidents involving ammunition production, energy infrastructure, military facilities, and Russian intelligence operations. It's the Russians! Let me start with what we know. In Poland, on the 7th of August, Polish security services detained a Russian citizen recruited by Russian intelligence whose task was to execute a man holding both American and Ukrainian citizenship in Warsaw. Prime Minister Donald Tusk announced it yesterday. According to him, this is the first time someone acting on Russian orders has tried to kill an American citizen on the territory of another NATO country. In Germany, on August 6th, the drone carrying explosives was found near a runway at Leipzig-Halle Airport, next to a Ukrainian Antonov Airlines cargo aircraft. 2 days later, 2 drones were spotted over the Bundeswehr base at Metternich. Also not a rumor. In Italy, a fire in the powder compression department at the K&DS Ammo Italy plant in Colleferro, southeast of Rome, was followed by a massive explosion. No one was killed. The plant produces 155mm artillery ammunition supplied to Ukraine through European partners. In the Netherlands, within a few hours at Europe's largest port, a transformer fire, a major power failure, an emergency shutdown at the ExxonMobil refinery in Botlek, and then an explosion at the Gunvor energy refinery and terminal that killed 1 worker and injured 6. I wouldn't be surprised if Russia is responsible for all these accidents. I wrote about this problem 2 years ago. Back then, Europe was already experiencing an extraordinary wave of suspicious incidents. IKEA set on fire in Vilnius, an arson attack on a Ukraine-linked warehouse in London, sabotage plots against military industrial targets in Germany, attempts to attack infrastructure in the Czech Republic, an attack on the car of Estonia's interior minister, attempts to disrupt European railway systems, and later incendiary devices sent through European logistics networks, including devices that detonated or ignited in Germany, Poland, and Britain. The reason I'm reading all of this is because, holy shit, Europe has long forsaken its claim to first world status. When my president was talking about shithole nations, I think I know what he was talking about. So then he goes on and on, making his case for why he thinks it's Russia. Russia is waging a hybrid war against Europe. Sabotage, arson, cyber attacks, assassination plots, GPS interference, attacks on logistics and critical infrastructure. These are not theoretical threats. They have already happened. So things are bad in Europe and getting worse. Yeah, Straight Buster says it's a fucking war zone a la Modern Warfare 3. But check this out. John Harold, the man of whom I spoke earlier, who we're going to watch on Rich Does Politics in just a moment. He says, did you know that the group suing Donald Trump to prevent construction of the ballroom is the National Trust for Historic Preservation in the United States? They preserve history in the United States by having over $145 million worth of expenditures for and investments in Central America and Europe. How interesting. This is from their Schedule F. Central America and the Caribbean, and Europe, including Iceland and Greenland. Globalist assholes. This is the group that is suing Donald Trump to prevent him from constructing a great room for his balls. And then another tweet from John Harold. He says, the concept of devolution has officially reached the Joe Rogan experience. For those unfamiliar with my work, I began publishing the Devolution series in 2021, exploring the theory that Donald Trump implemented a continuity of government plan in response to the 2020 election. If Joe Rogan wants to discuss the topic with someone who spent years researching and writing about it, I'd be happy to have that conversation. I would love to see that. That might be the first Joe Rogan episode I tuned in for, since the J.D. Vance one, which wasn't that great. But here is Annie Jacobson bringing up this idea of devolution.
There's a point in all these plans where anarchy and chaos takes over and the war game ends. Like, oh, and now we're done here. And I would say, as the journalist, like to myself, what happens next? What happens next? And why aren't we learning about it?
And they don't have any plans for what happens after anarchy and chaos?
They do. They just don't have it in the declassified games, and that's what there's a plan called the devolution plan.
Oh.
Eyebrows up for a reason.
I don't like that word.
Think about evolution.
Yeah.
Now put a D in front of it.
Yeah.
Instead of going forward, you're going backward. So you've heard of DEFCON, right?
Yes.
Okay, so DEFCON, Defense Readiness Condition, there's 5. 5 is the lowest. That's like normal every day. At 9/11, we were at 3. DEFCON 1 means nuclear war. There's a separate structure of readiness condition called COGCON. Probably haven't heard of it because it's classified. Stands for Continuity of Government Readiness Condition. It's got 4 levels. 4 is every day. 1 is insurrection. The Insurrection Act gets declared. COGCON 1 is in effect, and the devolution plan happens, which I learned means a subset of pre-designated officials. They know who they are, they've signed contracts, they've rehearsed it. They go out. In the words of the former FEMA director, COGCON 1, you send your devolution crews out. They go out to a hot site, warm site, or cold site, underground bunkers located around the United States. This is from an actual FEMA chief telling me this. And they set up how to run the government because the idea is all the regular government people will probably be dead of anarchy, insurrection, pneumonic plague.
So they have bunkers.
And those are classified.
That last clip there, you have her just talking. And Joe's like, pfft. So they have bunkers. So this is the continuity of government plan was something that was set up during the Cold War for the event of if there was a nuclear strike on Washington D.C. and a bunch of the heads the head levels of the government were all decapitated all at once. What plans do you have in place to ensure that government is maintained, that you don't have a complete collapse into chaos and anarchy? So they have prescribed plans and a whole layout of executive orders and stuff that are all delineating whose responsibility is what in the event of some sort of great plague or act of war or something that decapitates the head of the government. So that's the sort of the concept of the continuity of government, or COG. And then devolution is essentially that in an event like that, the president devolves his specific powers to specific people, and their responsibility is maintaining those powers until at whatever point they can evolve the power back up to the executive again. So these are plans that have been laid out and it's kind of logical. It makes sense that you would have something like this as a government. This is stuff that's been laid out for a long time, and it's not even into like crazy conspiracy theory land. It's just like a sort of a basic operational structure or emergency settings for the government. So then, with that sort of background, there's a whole big rabbit hole of this you can go down, but this is a great overview from John Harold talking to Rich at Rich Does Politics. And if you want to have some fun, go read John Harold's Devolution series. I think it's like a 30-part Substack series where he goes through in great detail all of this stuff, and then ended up creating a media company as a consequence of it, Badlands Media. And so here he is talking to Rich Does Politics. No one is talking about what Trump did in his last 8 days.
Hey, John, thank you so much for making yourself available.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm very excited about this conversation.
Yes, thank you. Me too. You are one of the team at Badlands Media, and you have all sorts of fabulous stuff on your platforms, and I'll have the links in the description below where people can find you. And I wanted to speak to you about continuity of government and devolution. And I've heard these phrases around and everything, but I don't quite understand it. And it's something to do with, I think, what's going on in the United States with the Trump administration and the globalists in power. So what is continuity of government?
Yeah, so this is it's a theory that I actually stumbled on. Like, I didn't come up with the concept of devolution back when
he explains the background of the Patel Patriot. It's from Kash Patel. He's a big Kash Patel fan.
Trump was the president the first time around. He was, clearly the election was stolen from him, right? And at that moment, I was like, there's no way he's going to let somebody else come in and steal the election from him. And I was just kind of looking for answers to what's going on. And especially like after he actually walked away, my mind was kind of blown. And I stumbled across this guy, Thomas Wichter. He was talking about this concept of devolution. He wasn't going super in depth, but
real ones are going to perk up when they hear Thomas Wichter mentioned. Where's Superior B? You in here, bro? Where's Superior B? We got a Thomas Wichter mention on the Astrolabe. Your ears should be burning if they aren't already.
He was kind of laying out some of the initial breadcrumbs. And so I started looking into it. And the more I researched, like, wow, this does seem to be what happened here. It's the only logical explanation, I think, that mapped onto the world as we were witnessing it unfold. And so, yeah, devolution, it's a form of continuity of government. And I don't know if you want me to just like get into what that means and or how you want this to go, but willing to take this wherever.
Sure. Well, I understand English. Continuity means something's carrying on.
Yeah.
Of pertains to government, that which rules over us and tells us what's good for us.
Yeah. That's the polite way of putting it. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
So you're right.
So for that to keep
it is funny for those of you who are regular listeners of Rich, you know that he likes to what'd you call it? He likes to like play the foil sometimes. He's does a lot of little like tongue-in-cheek remarks, and it's kind of funny throughout this that it takes John a while to figure out what he's doing. He's like, oh, I see you're doing a thing.
Carrying on, telling us what's good for us and managing our lives for our betterment, really.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably
a bit cynical.
I don't know, over easy and yes, cynical way of explaining it. But that's the principles of it are right. Continuity of government means, and think of where it started, the Cold War. When we were, supposedly going to have a nuclear fallout with Russia, and our government wanted to basically protect itself if that worst case scenario happened. So you could go back and look this up. I think the first bunker that we found out about in the United States was the one on the golf course in West Virginia, the Greenbrier. Like if you look up Greenbrier just in your favorite search engine, there's a golf course, and underneath it was like 120,000 square foot bunker with glass doors and everything. And the idea was that's where Congress was going to go in the case of a nuclear fallout. Okay, so that's one. And then you have like Raven Rock. I know everybody's heard of Raven Rock. That's I think it's in the mountains in Pennsylvania, Mount Weather in Virginia. Like all over the country, there's these fallout shelters for government. And there's movies and everything about these fallout shelters, but it's a real.
There's Superior B. He says the Foyd was distracting him. You gotta get your Foyd under control, man. We're talking about Thomas Wichter over here.
Concept that our government had put in place, a real framework, real executive orders, real emergency actions and personnel and budget that is dedicated to the scenario that, well, what if there's a nuke that drops on Washington and most of our government is taken out? How do we continue forward with some sort of functioning society? And so when you look into that, a lot of the context about it is with the worst case scenario of a nuke, and there's other pandemics and other disasters that take place. But the flip side of it is like, what if it wasn't a physical thing? Like, what if it wasn't a nuke that took out our government center, right? Our presidents and the Congress and people who lead us. What if it was an attack on the process which elects them, our elections? What if somebody hijacked or stole an election from a sitting president? What tools could he have to fight back against that? So it's a little bit of an inversion of the traditional continuity of government framework, but I think it fits. And I think Trump, the way he altered some of the things, which we can get into later, I think it maps onto that very clearly that this is what he did. It's just a theory. There's no document out there that says Trump for sure implemented continuity of government and devolution. But I think there's so much circumstantial evidence pointing to this. I fully believe this is what happened. And I'll pause there in case you have any questions or thoughts first.
When I put my hand up like this, I'm politely saying I want to interject and ask a question so I can understand this better.
Yeah.
Which is, these shelters that you described, surely they should be top secret. How come you...
Mr. Stu, there's no one's doomsburging over anything. You jumped in on the middle and you don't have any idea what's going on.
Know about them and...
Well, some of them are. I mean, for sure, there's who knows how many are top secret, but these are just the ones that have become public at some point over the years.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And then so Trump lost the election.
Yes. Well,
because
that's
it
what they
was
say.
stolen from him.
Yeah.
It was really anybody who actually takes a serious look, and you'll see there's so much evidence that shows that how it was stolen, the 2020 election from him. So then how could he have continued the government? Because he's no longer in power. The Congress that had to certify the election got certified that it was passed on January the 6th and that it was valid. So how could he continue?
Well, let's look at it this way. So leading up to that election, November 3rd, 2020, probably 10, 15 times, if not more, in the lead up to that, Trump said they are going to use COVID to steal the election. They are going to use COVID. I mean, it's probably way more than that. I'm way underselling it. If you go look at his Twitter, like you can do Trump Twitter archive and look it up and just type in election, put in the date constraints of before November 3rd, 2020, hundreds of examples of Trump talking about the upcoming stolen election. And then even more context, you could look at all the declassified documents that we're getting right now, showing how the weaponized intelligence community was doing everything they could to delegitimize him in his first term. Like he clearly knew that they weren't going to just let him waltz back in there via another election. So
one thing that's great about all this D-class stuff that's coming out now is, so I just realized he's got Jason Lowery's book back here, Soft War. All of the D-class stuff that comes out, every time something drops, it's like the majority of the people that I follow are, they're just kind of like, oh, whatever, like they don't really have any awareness to it. And all of the people who are in both the QAnon and the, well, not QAnon, both the Q and the devolution sort of circles, they chimp the hell out because every single time something drops, they're like, this is a reference to that. These are the same people that keep coming up, the same investigations we've been trying to figure out, the same executive orders that we've been studying. All of the stuff that they're doing now is all constantly hailing back to that. And then they keep getting, like at this point, there's been so many comms that there's only two options here. Either the Q people are right, or there are people in the administration who are intentionally correlating their actions and their communications to signal to the Q people. Those are the only two available options at this point. There's plenty of people who do the whole comms thing, and like John Harold here gets really irritated with them, where they're like, Trump like wore a suit jacket at this event when he said this word, and I wear a suit jacket, so Trump is talking to me. People go way overboard with it, but there's enough that has happened from either from stuff that Trump has said, or particularly people like Dan Scavino signals a lot of this sort of thing. And then Mike Flynn is like a really, really kind of mercurial sort of character, very difficult to figure out what role he's playing in it. So as we go through this here, he's going to start mentioning a lot of specific executive orders, specific names of specific people who come up repeatedly, who seem to be involved somehow, and a lot of those names will be familiar to you.
So he knows that the election is being stolen. He knows they're going to steal it. How do you respond to that? I think he had a myriad of options. But if you go back to around the time, there was about 2 months before, I think it was the summer of 2020, there was this the Transition Integrity Project. They put out this report of 4 scenarios regarding the upcoming election. It was a Joe Biden close win, a Joe Biden big win, a Trump close win, and a Trump big win. 3 of those situations all ended up resulting with somehow Biden being in office, whether it was the military dragging Trump out or all these different wild scenarios. The third option, the fourth option, was Trump big win, and that was a civil war. These people were gearing up for like a civil war. They were not going to let Trump in there, and I think he knew that. So
Cooper says, Trump sneezed, so that means the lizards are trafficking children through Romanian tunnels so Obama can eat them. Yeah. We were talking the other day about the boomers and how like completely one-shotted they've been by fake AI news on Facebook, like boomers on Facebook sharing stories that are something to that extent.
So still, as the sitting president, though, you have the constitutional responsibility to enforce the laws and safeguard our election process. And he knew they were going to steal it, and he knew they did steal it. So what do you do in that situation? You can't just let Joe Biden come in and take over presidency, but you also can't really fight it because you are risking a civil war. And the civil war itself, that's one issue. But then what our adversaries nationwide and the globalists, and the deep state, what they could do with a scenario like that could be devastating. So you got to get a little creative. And when you start looking at the moves that Trump made, he in the time period from November 3rd to when he actually left office on January 20th of 2021, he he changed the continuity of government framework in the United States, and I think it was to fit the definition of some sort of devolution plan. He rewrote the national essential functions, which we'll talk about here in a second. But that's like what you do in a continuity of government situation. There's a list of 8 national essential functions that you are basically trying to just maintain, because you're not going to be able to keep the government functioning to the same level. But there's certain like red line items that you try to maintain. So he reorganized and reprioritized those. He's the first president outgoing to issue 10 national security presidential memorandums, which we'll talk about that too. And he did that in the last 10 days in office. No president had ever even done like more than one, I think, between the time that he was like the lame duck period between when the election happens and when he actually walks away, those 3 months. No, hardly any president even does one of those. He did 10.
So you guys, he's actually, they correct himself. He corrects himself later. It was actually 8. It was 8 in the last 8 days, I think, and not 10 in the last 10 days. But this was actually the period of time in November, December, January of 2020 into 2021. This was the period of time where the Labe actually, or not the Labe, but the King Pill podcast was actually born. I started live streaming in this time, and I was tracking and following a lot of these things as they were happening. I remember this; it was a very fluid time in world history, I suppose, American history, and it was. I remember it being very up in the air, like what was going to happen, and it was clear that lots of weird things were going on behind the scenes, and different moves were being made as if there was like troops. It was sort of like the feeling of like armies positioning themselves for a conflict, and it wasn't completely clear exactly how it was going to pan out. And then in retrospect, it was kind of like going back through and picking through the wreckage and trying to make sense of all of it. So I remember being deep in the weeds, tracking these things, looking at these executive orders, these different personnel movements that were made. And there were specific names of guys that popped out constantly then. He's going to mention a few of them here shortly. Kash Patel is one of them. This was where I first heard of Kash Patel, was when I started seeing the sort of continuity of government sort of moves that were being made. And I mean, I was aware of him before, but that's when he really came to the forefront.
10 of them in the last 10 days as he was outgoing. Unheard of, but nobody's asked him about this. And you can go on and on and on of a list of the personnel moves that he made. And we can get into all this stuff, but the question that you presented, and I know I'm kind of...
Augustine says, what I don't get is, could it not be reversed, 121 or whatever? Yeah, he addresses that.
Rambling on here, but that's the one I get met with a lot. Like, how could he have done that? He was clearly, they said he lost the election. Congress was in there. They voted him out and he walked away. But I think that's like such a surface level, that's the mainstream explanation for what happened. If we're right about the election fraud, it didn't just affect Joe Biden. It affects all the people in Congress that certified the election against him too, So the list of enemies is so much bigger than just Congress. And that's what I think, that's the framework I think Trump is operating in, is that most of Congress, if not all of Congress, is illegitimate to a degree. And I'm saying that even now, even though Trump is back in there in 2024, I don't think the 2024 election was legitimate either. None of these people in there are legitimately elected. We do not have an election infrastructure that can produce legitimate results. It's just not possible. And so that's the framework that he's operating in.
So I just had a look on Brave for the national security memorandums. And I probably need to do a deeper search, which I can do later. But with regards to the members of Congress, I remember at 2020, and I think also in 2024, actually more in 2024, because Trump, so many people came out in support of Trump that they couldn't cheat enough to overcome. Yeah. So then what I think they did, the globalists did, is they focused on the down ballot. Okay, we're not going to get Trump. Well, let's dump a load of votes in favor of this Democratic congressman.
For sure.
Or this mayor or whatever. So so that would make sense. They cheated to get the 2024 incumbent in. Excuse me, have you signed up for my free newsletter yet? Go to richdoespolitics.com.
Yeah, and if you think about it, I think you're right in the way you framed that. Of it would have been too obvious for them to steal it from him again. And the way the Biden administration was running things, like people were legitimately upset with the direction of the country. And so I think they couldn't have gotten away with it. But if they wanted to protect their election fraud infrastructure, which I think is their most important tool in their belt, their ability to pull the wool over our eyes and tell us that, we're participating in this democratic process while they just install, deep state candidate after deep state candidate, whether it's Republican or Democrat, it's all a uniparty. That's what I believe. I think they wanted to protect that. So you're right. They let Trump have it. They went into this hibernation mode where they're just like, we just need to outlast Trump. We can delegitimize him as much as we can along the way. We just need to outlast him and protect as much as we can. He's going to do some damage. I think that's their mindset, where Trump's mindset is obviously like, you can try to outlast me, but I'm going to destroy you in the process, if that makes sense.
So in this sense, the midterms is actually kind of a continuation of 2024, because this is something that was very evident. Like Trump's victory was announced early on, much quicker on 2024 than I expected. And then, but there was a few races across the country that dragged on, and there were weird results, weird vote dumps that dropped in the middle of the night. But like people didn't have the desire to like go chase them down and really put the sort of pressure and scrutiny on them that would be necessary to suss out the fraud. Everyone was just like busy celebrating and like it was accepted. Okay, Trump won, and so all the down ballot stuff didn't get there. I think there also wasn't necessarily the infrastructure yet to cover all of the bases everywhere across the country. They focused on specific states and specific counties in specific states, ensured that those are the ones that would guarantee at least a Trump victory. And then the midterms was going to have to be when you built up everything to the point where you could try to purify the elections even further through the midterms. So in this sense, we've kind of been in one state for this entire time, where the midterms is now the opportunity to finish a lot of the work that was done in the 2024 general.
Makes sense.
There's slight contrast between the two.
Yeah, just slightly.
Okay, all right. So carry on then. So he issued these 10 security memorandums. He knew it was coming.
Yes. And that's just one of the things he did. Like there's multiple other things. I think let me start with my favorite thing that he did. And I'll send you a link here in the chat. So if you want, you can look at it and follow along.
Sure.
But so I became a pretty kind of obsessed, like weirdly autistically obsessed with going through Trump's executive orders at the time of when he was, leaving office. And I've read through every single one of Trump's executive orders that he's ever issued, but there's certain ones that I keyed in on. A lot of people, like to talk about Executive Order 13848, the one on election interference. I've studied that one in and out. There's multiple other ones having to do with human trafficking and corruption, but my favorite one is Executive Order 13961. It was issued on December 7th of 2020, which was, in that period of...
I just got a question, you guys. What if you want to know your true patriot status? A great proxy for that is how many of my president's executive orders can you name from memory? Have you been studying the sacred scrolls? Have you been committing them to memory? Can you not only name them, but name the content of them? I have to admit, I've been lacking in this. My patriot credentials have taken a hit, and this is probably a good opportunity for us to learn from our errors and be more like John Harold, studying our president's proclamations.
Of him losing the election and him walking away on January 20th, Joe Biden getting inaugurated. And the executive order is called Governance and Integration of Federal Mission Resilience. And the first thing that you notice about this is it's using the authority. So every executive order is based on multiple different authorities, or chooses from several. It can be an established law that's out there, an act or something. It can be just a national emergency. This one is the laws of the Constitution and the National Security Act of 1947. And if you go and look at what that is, it's Title 50, which is our war and national defense. So right off the bat, you know that this executive order is being issued in the context of war and national defense. And then you start reading through this executive order, 13961, and it talks about continuity of government. It's the policy of the United States to maintain comprehensive and effective
Lord Breezy says, I've been practicing dutiful retard loyalty to the president. And Cooper said, I don't even need to read them. My president has my full faith and confidence. And I have to admit, that is a satisfactory patriot justification for being a little rusty on Trump's sacred scrolls.
Continuity of government programs and ensure national security and all these things. And then it goes through this executive order, creates a task force to implement and execute a continuity of government plan. Which, like, why would Trump be doing this as he's an outgoing president? Like this doesn't make sense. And it lists all the people, and so that's like clue number one for me of like how is not only is the why there of he knew the election was going to be stolen, he needed to do something to counter it, but the how is already existed in the continuity of government framework that's been there since the 60s, and then he just tweaked it a little bit to be able to walk away. And that's not to say that Joe Biden didn't take office, because I believe he did. But the way I look at it is that whatever continuity of government it was, and however they realigned it so that they were protecting the national essential functions, it's almost as if Biden was in a baby's playpen, right? Like you're a baby in a playpen. You can still move around. You can still pick up toys and throw it. You can still do certain things. You can throw a fit, whatever. But you cannot operate outside of that playpen. And I think there were certain things that Biden could not touch or could not operate in. Some good examples are when Biden was president.
So we'll get to this in a minute, because there's so many of these really weird things. And there's people who have taken this to the point of like the full blown patriots in control, where like the whole thing is just totally scripted out, and these are all actors, and all of them have all the Democrats all have patriots have kidnapped their family and are they're just doing everything that they're told. Like people have gone overboard with that. It's fun to meme like that, but if you're asking me honestly, I think people have gone overboard with that. But people also go overboard on the opposite side, where they say there was nothing happened, nothing of note. This is all fanciful stuff that has no bearing on reality. And I think that's like erring just as much, if not even like more of an error. It's like an error of substance beyond just like, yeah, you guys went a little overboard. It's like, no, you're blinding yourself to something that's very real. So they'll go into that in just a second. There was something that I wanted to say when I paused it. If you read the Devolution series, where the first couple of them, he makes the case, he like lays out the case for why it was very clear that Trump and plenty of people in his orbit saw the combination of COVID and Black Lives Matter and mail-in ballots as effectively, if not literally, an attack by foreign agents, like a foreign attack on the United States, an actual like military threat. It's just like the way that military threats present themselves is different now than before. So it's like military threats are funded through NGOs and election rigging and weaponized plagues, with bureaucratic regulatory capture being used to fund these sorts of operations. But it was very clear that they saw this as a military penetration of the United States. And that was building up through a number of Trump statements, through executive orders that were issued throughout 2020, and his rhetoric, the way he's talking about all this sort of stuff. And then you get this interim period between the election and the inauguration, where there's this big flurry of activity. And then there's all these weird anomalies with Biden's presidency that follow from that. So there's something there, and it's like you gotta be able to try to pick out the signal from the noise.
And I think there were certain things that Biden could not touch or could not operate in. Some good examples are when Biden was president, he was trying to get us back into the nuclear deal that Obama started and Trump got us out of, the Iran nuclear deal. While he was negotiating with them, our military was bombing Iranian-backed militias. It'd be like, hey, let's go negotiate peace with Russia, and while we're doing that, we're just going to start bombing Russia constantly. Like, those two things are contradictions. They work against each other, literally. There are so many examples of that took place during the Biden administration. He didn't even fly in on Air Force One. Trump left with the nuclear football because he didn't go to Biden's inauguration. I mean, you can go on and on and on.
Oh, okay. That's peculiar, to say the least. That's quite something. Like, I don't even know where to go with this. So
sorry, it's a lot.
Trump, no. What you're saying, it is a lot, and your attention to detail.
Did you guys know about any of this?
Recall all this is just wonderful. Thank you. I'm trying to understand it. So Biden. So first off, it's like do you have Fisher Price in the United States?
We do, yeah, like the toys.
Okay,
yeah.
You got little kids, right, as well. Yeah. Okay, here's your Fisher Price government.
Pretty much.
That's what you can do, right? But what I'm astounded by is how the Democrats went along with it. Surely they would have known. They will have read the executive orders, and couldn't Biden have countermanded those in some way? And then also the nuclear football. Then Biden can say, "Look, I'm the president. Give that to me," or his team, because he couldn't really say anything. And then the military bombing the people that Iranian government is backing, that Biden is negotiating with. Well, who are these military? Why are they backing the president that lost the election, the certified election, versus the one that's actually in power now? Well, there's a few questions there.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So let's start with, surely the enemy would have known. I think they knew something was up. I think they were as surprised as anybody that Trump actually walked away. Like, if you go back to all the things Trump said in that period, we should give that period like a nickname, so I quit having to say the full November 3rd to January 20th. But during that time,
the fall of the U.S.
Yeah, there we go. During the fall of the U.S. period, like, they were freaking out. Trump was constantly saying he was going to not let. His literal quote, one of my favorites, was, "If we are right about the fraud, Joe Biden cannot be president." And I think he meant that, and I think that's what happened here. But they pulled off a fake insurrection against Trump to try to get him out, right? Like, they used that all against him. And even still, they rushed to impeach for the first time in history an outgoing president. Because I think they knew just as well as we did that they're like, something's up here. He's not done. And then you look at all the political persecution, all the stuff that we've seen from the period where Joe Biden was in there, about how they continued to try to delegitimize him. I think it's because they constantly knew that he was up to something. They raided his house at Mar-a-Lago, not just for old times. They were looking for something. I think they were looking for, maybe it was something to do with the continuity government plan. I don't know, but all that stuff happened. But then Trump did.
But I think that this is a very good point. That and I as I've tried to put myself in that mindset from back then, I didn't think that it was possible that Biden was actually going to take office. It was so obvious what had happened. This was so transparently clear that this is foreign enemies of the United States rigging an election to get the 10% for the big guy Chinese agent as the president. And I was like, there's no way that this can actually go through. But like you said, there was the study that was done by, I think it was like the Mark Elias or what's his name, the lawyer. That doesn't really narrow it. Norm Eisen. It was where there was like 4 outcomes. There was a big Biden win, a small Biden win, a big Trump win, a small Trump win, and the conclusion was that there's going to be an insurrection or a civil war, and Trump isn't going to accept the results of an election that goes against him, and so there's going to be it's wartime. And then Trump just backed down. He just left. And I remember he put that video out of him standing on the White House lawn telling people not to be violent and to go home. And it was like, I remember studying that video for so long, trying to figure out if it was actually real or if it was AI. Because this was like before AI videos really, but it was like, okay, so who has the advance thing that like now you could totally fake it would be almost imperceptible, but then it was like looking for is there a green screen here, was Trump taken prisoner somehow, did his security team turn on him and arrest him, who knows what happened behind the scenes, but it was so weird how he just stood down. And I think that John is right that the regime against him didn't expect him to stand down. So they were gearing up for the full-blown fight, and then he just stood down, and so they were kind of like, what do we do now? We got to impeach him. Impeach him, quick. Make sure that he's impeached so that when he tries a thing, it doesn't work.
Trump did leave office. I can show you a video of Trump leaving the White House. Or here's an article. This is an easy one. Trump won't hand Biden the nuclear football. Here's how. And so some of these stories, it's a mainstream interpretation, trying to normie-splain it.
This was NBC News. For the first time, the outgoing president will not hand off the black leather case to the incoming president. And yes, they're trying to normie-splain what, this is very weird. If it was the only weird thing, if it was a totally ordinary election and this was the only thing, it'd be kind of like, oh, that's kind of odd. But within all of the rest of the context, Trump retained the nuclear football and didn't pass it off to Biden. And that's just the beginning of the weird anomalies.
Here's how. And so some of these stories, it's a mainstream interpretation, trying to normie-splain it to people. Trump's not going to hand the nuclear football to Biden, but that doesn't mean he's still president at 12 o'clock. It's not going to work anymore. But he literally walked away with the nuclear football. And do you remember very early on during the Biden administration when he was literally doing his presidency from a TV set?
Yes.
He was getting vaccine shots. He was giving press conference. I mean, here's another great article I could send you. Truman Show presidency of the fake White House set. And then here's
sorry, I'm just working out StreamYard.
And that was very much a thing for the first several months of Biden's presidency. It was like he's very obviously doing all of this from a movie set. He's not actually in the Oval Office. People were like, there was some that had it was in the middle of winter, and but there was fully green trees outside the back window, and it was just very obvious that he was doing all of this from a set. And supposedly it was because of COVID things or something like that. Or then people would get a little schizo and they'd be like, oh, actually he's in really bad health. And so they're using the fake Joe Biden on a movie set somewhere because the real Joe Biden is infirmed or something. But it was very, very, oh yeah, the office of the president-elect. I totally forgot about that, Straight Buster. Yes, the office of the president-elect. What is that? That's never been a thing before. And then like his actual inauguration ceremony has all sorts of really weird, like there's camera cuts that it's pretty obvious this was filmed on 2 different days. Like the lighting is different, the cloud cover is different. Then when he actually, someone went back and they did the research and found the exact moment in time when every previous president had taken the oath of office. And every previous president had taken the oath of office before noon. They took it at like 11:48 or 11:54 or 11:57. Biden took the oath of office at like 12:06. He's the only president going back several presidents to take the oath of office after noon. Which again, in isolation, it's kind of like, yeah, whatever. You know, who cares like when he actually did it? But you start stacking all these anomalies up and it's like, and they mention a couple more here in a sec.
StreamYard.
Yeah, no
kind of
problem.
new to StreamYard. Image.
I'm just going to keep sending you some interesting links.
Well, perhaps we'll add them as overlays.
Yeah.
That will upset my editor.
No worries. But there's I've compiled like just list or item after item of weird things from the Biden
Rich, you have to let your editor out of the basement.
presidency. There was even times while Biden was in office, Trump was sending members of his former cabinet and administration to other places across the country or across the world to like deal with certain situations. In March of 2022, he sent Rick Grinnell to Kosovo, Serbia to discuss like the agreement that they took place and settled during the Trump presidency. But that was while Biden was in office. So you'd think that'd be something his administration would do, but it wasn't. Mike Pence was taking international trips to Israel, Japan. Mike Pompeo was going to Taiwan. Robert O'Brien, his NSA, was going to Taiwan and all these other places. It was happening all over the place. Then you had 24-hour security from Secret Service being extended to multiple people within Trump's administration, like Pence, Mnuchin, Meadows, O'Brien, Trump himself. And again, these are I'm talking a lot about the circumstantial evidence than how the actual continuity government type stuff works. But was there another part of your question? Another question?
I can't remember, John. But what you're saying makes sense. So one is, I don't think I told you, but I'm qualified as a child protection social worker.
Sure.
I work in child abuse. Now, I've never ever seen child abuse happen. Never seen it happen.
Wow.
Well, because they don't do it while the social worker's there, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But what I see are the signs of it.
Gotcha.
The expressions, how the children are, how the parents are, how mum and dad are with each other, the behavior of the children at school, what the doctors say, what the teachers say. It all points to trauma. So what you're saying is, what you're pointing to are outward expressions, manifestations that indicate, that point to continuity of government. Because this didn't happen at 2016. Trump coming in to replace Obama didn't have to build a fake set. And then also, I remember Biden's inauguration in a cemetery, a 3-gun salute, not a 21-gun salute.
Yeah. It was also weird, wasn't it? Why was that?
Really, really, what is going on? And also the fake set, all these images, and like, what is going on?
Yeah.
What I don't understand is...
And then you have the auto pen. Like this makes the auto pen scandal, it like frames it in sort of a different light here. That like it's like Biden was being handled by a team of people, and there was a bunch of these executive things that were being done, but he didn't even know about it. And this is just like accepted about the auto pen thing. But when you frame it in this light, then what does it mean? Superior B says, so Mike Pence wasn't actually a bad guy, but I don't think he was able to play the part or understood the gravity. Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of people who, like, just because it was a continuity of government plan that was put in place to ensure that, thank you, Rufus Garbage-Steen. Thank you for subscribing. That doesn't mean that every single person who was involved in it was just just a good guy, just a white hat. There would be plenty of people who wouldn't necessarily be. Because again, like the Democratic establishment and the neocons are separate entities for a reason. Now they tend to align, their interests align, and they collaborate on a lot of things together, but they are separate entities and they won't hesitate to stab each other in the back if they get a chance to. So, there would have been more than just the people who were like, the patriot, sovereigntist, white hat types. You could just as easily be a totally corrupt, neocon operative and still be like, we need to preserve this little node of power and transition through this period and navigate and come out the other end and keep power from going to these people. So I don't think that the continuity of government devolution idea requires that every person who is involved in it also have perfectly proven patriot credentials or anything like that. The world never breaks down that cleanly.
And is how come?
Yeah, Zoomer Dylan, Biden's military cabinet never knew about a Chinese guy returning to the U.S. I've mentioned him before. This is Dong Jing Wei, who is basically like the national security advisor, like the head of the intelligence services for China, who defected to the United States. He defected to Defense Intelligence, and the CIA did not know he was here. And Anthony Blinken, Biden's Secretary of State, did not know that he was here. And presumably what he defected to reveal was intelligence regarding COVID and the Chinese response to COVID. That was ostensibly the stuff that he brought over when he defected. But the Chinese showed up at a meeting in Alaska with Anthony Blinken and demanded that their defector be returned. And he was like, "What are you talking about?" And it caused a little diplomatic stir at the time.
The Democrats somehow didn't subvert that. The executive orders, 13961 and the others, they were public.
Yep. And none of them were rescinded.
Yeah. So why didn't...
Actually, I lied about that. Because one of the interesting things, and I'll answer your question.
Yeah.
Executive Order 13961, in my opinion, was the most significant executive order in terms of continuity of government, devolution. That's what I call it. Because devolution itself, it's it's essentially somebody giving up their power to lower level authorities for them to maintain things while the person's away, essentially. And that's what I think happened. I think Trump, he devolved his authority to other people. We don't know who those people are, and they maintained the national essential functions, the red line items, whatever those were. And we can go through a list. That the last link I sent you has a list of those NEFs in there. That's what I think happened while he was gone. I don't think Trump was, some people like to say he was still president. I think he was more of an advisor during that period. But again, that's just me. And I'm the first to tell you, I don't claim to know everything. I don't know exactly. This is how I think things took place based on what I've seen.
Sure. No,
John has made the point in other streams in the past that he was like, he kind of confronted this realization that he was like, if my whole theory is that Trump, as the outgoing president, triggered these continuity of government plans and devolved his authority to these other people to manage these core essential functions or to delegate them onto others to manage those essential functions, then by definition, Trump is not in power. Because by definition, he devolved his power to other people to maintain that power before restoring it back to him or his successor or whatever.
No, I have to do the same as a social worker. I don't know exactly what happened, but it points to this.
Exactly. In terms of the question of like, why didn't the Democrats or the enemy like do anything about this? I think they did what they thought they could to the, like, I think they fought against him. They tried to make sure that he couldn't come back publicly. I think they tried to they arrested him. They did all these things. They tried to separate him from his movement, but ironically, it only made him stronger. But if they came out and were to disclose that Trump implemented some sort of continuity of government scenario, which is fully within his constitutional authority to do, if he interprets an act of another country as an act of war, which subverting our election would be, and we can talk about that too, then he's free to respond to that however he sees fit. There's a Supreme Court case, Campbell versus Clinton back in the 90s, where Clinton was bombing, I think it was like Yugoslavia or something, and the Senate tried to sue him to get him to stop. And the Supreme Court came in and said, only the president can determine, whether something's an act of war. And if he judges that, then he can respond how he sees fit. It's it's up to the president to do that. So that's why I see this as. But if they would have came out and started talking about Trump implementing devolution or continuity,
that act of war, like identifying something as an act of war, and if you believe that Trump and people in his orbit recognized what was happening and identified it as an act of war, then they would need to respond to it accordingly. They would have like a statutory obligation to do it, but then they would also, if they have self-interest themselves, they would also be interested in responding to it as an act of war. But then it's like, how do you respond to an act of war by a non-nation state actor? You could say this is China, but it seems pretty clear that the administration recognizes that their war is, or their conflict is not with China per se. It's with particular Chinese influences. And it's also very evident that they recognize that a lot of the enemy class, emerges out of the EU, out of the Eurozone.
It's an act of war. And if he judges that, then he can respond how he sees fit. It's it's up to the president to do that. So that's why I see this as. But if they would have came out and started talking about Trump implementing devolution or continuity of government, then we would have had to have the conversation of why he did that. And then I think we would have had to have the conversation about them stealing the election. Like that whole thing would have had to have been adjudicated, I believe, in my opinion. And so that's why I think they didn't come out and directly say it, but I think they knew just as well as everybody that Joe Biden did not receive 81 million real lawful American votes. That guy did not win the election. It was a clown show.
Hold on, John. I think you're being unfair. Right?
You think
Joe
so?
Biden, Obama, when he campaigned, especially the first time, filled out stadiums. Great orator, right? And Biden got more votes than Obama. Trump filled out stadiums. People would queue for hours to hear Trump speak. They both missed a trick. What they should have done is campaigned from their basement, online, had only maybe 5-10 people turn up to the rallies and have no vision
Rich
whatsoever.
is doing his thing.
Then had Obama and Trump done that, then they would
And
have got
John's just
81 million
figuring it
votes
out.
like
That's
Biden
all it
did.
takes.
Yeah, that's all it takes. That's the way to win an election, John.
It was such a clown show back then. When you think back to that time, I can't believe people actually thought Joe Biden won.
Yeah,
It just
I
doesn't
know.
make sense.
Seriously, this is how you win an election.
Yeah, some.
Go ahead.
Jonathan Hemingway says, consider the implications of the Russia-Ukraine war and how the U.S. involvement and lack of involvement is impacted. Also, the removal of troops from Afghanistan. 2021 to 2025 has to be revised if this is true. Yeah, I mean, and I think, like, the question is, if I think it's easy to like put your to track into like two separate gutters where it's just very linear. It's just like either Trump was fully in control, and so every single thing that happened was actually some sort of galaxy brain move that they're doing this to like bait their enemies in, they're rope-a-doping them or whatever, or there's like just the standard mainstream accepted narrative that Trump was totally out of power and the Democrats were completely in control and yada yada yada. And I don't think that neither one of those is compelling to me. I think that there is and has been a power base around Trump. Trump is like their designated representative, and then there are systems and protocols that are baked into the government, that there's plenty of basically just government drones who are going to act and comply with certain things when they've been triggered, and they're not necessarily ideologically bought in one way or the other. But there was some measure of control and continuity that particular patriots maintained throughout the 2021 to 2025 timeframe. But like possession is 9/10 of the law. The fact that Democrats were visibly in positions of control and power was itself granting them control and power. So even if like this real super secret power actually devolved to this other group of people behind the scenes, the mere fact that Joe Biden was visibly seen as the president and is in the historical record as the president gave Joe Biden, or the person responsible for his voice, substantial power just in its own right.
No charisma, no platform, no following.
Nothing. It's nuts.
Yeah. Okay. So then you said you think what may have happened is that he devolved some of the functions, the presidential functions, to this other group of people.
Yes.
Who are these other group of people, John?
Well, it's totally speculative, but I do believe in that last article I sent you, there's a list of this committee, and I think that's kind of where you start. And a lot of these are key names. Like November 8th is the date that Joe Biden was declared the winner. And if you go back and look, Trump made a lot of very interesting personnel moves right around that time, especially within the Department of Defense. November 9th, he got rid of Esper and he named Christopher C. Miller as the acting Secretary of Defense. And Christopher C. Miller is an expert in PSYOPs. Like that was his thing. He's special operations background, expert in PSYOPs, which I think that plays into a lot of what we've seen during the Biden period and continuing forward. There's so much information warfare going around. It would make sense.
So right at that time, Trump removes a defense secretary who's basically a suit and replaces him with a military guy whose background for decades is in PSYOPs, who's then the acting Secretary of Defense for that period of time.
Makes sense to have an expert like that in there. He named this guy Anthony Tata as the and he's back in the Department of Defense now too. He was the senior official performing the duties for the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy, which is in charge of continuity planning for the DoD. He named Cash.
The Undersecretary of Defense for Policy, I believe, is now Elbridge Colby's title. Let me double check that real quick. Elbridge Colby. Yeah, he is the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy. Yes. And then George EP says, remember the PEDS. Yes, the PEDS. The Presidential Emergency Action Documents. Was that what it was? PEDS, Presidential Emergency Action Documents. Secret pre-drafted executive orders, proclamations, and messages to Congress prepared in advance for a president to sign during catastrophic national emergencies. Created during the Eisenhower administration for continuity of government during a nuclear attack. There was a bunch of PEDs. So it's like a pre-drafted executive order or a proclamation that is it's like put together and it's published and then it's like an executive order in waiting kind of. And there was a bunch of really interesting ones that Trump signed in 2020 and in throughout this period. That's another big thing. If you read the Devolution series, he goes into that in great detail. And he also, Jonathan Hemingway says, if Putin was clued in on this, it was obvious the USA was split personality at that moment, and Putin knew that was a good opportunity to move. That's an interesting point. Yeah. And I'm sure that Putin would have had some awareness of this, whether it's because, he has some back channel to Trump or just because he's like clued in and aware of what's happening. Kingless Kingdom says this would explain Tom's Powell theory as to how he wasn't removed. There's another interesting data point.
Kash Patel, the current FBI director, which are in defense now too, but he was the senior official performing the duties for the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy, which is in charge of continuity planning for the DoD. He named Kash Patel, the current FBI director, as Christopher Miller's chief of staff. And then you had Ezra Cohen-Watnick, who was promoted to the...
So Christopher Miller, this guy who's appointed as acting Secretary of Defense, military guy with a background in PSYOP, Special Forces, and then his chief of staff is Kash Patel, who has been a close loyalist of Trump up until that point. Came from, I think he was the chief of staff, or he was working as an assistant to Devin Nunes previously. This is why when Trump said when he appointed Kash Patel as his FBI director, regardless of what you could think or say about Kash Patel, there's zero question in my mind. He is absolutely a patriot who knows where the bodies are buried. He may have his own personal foibles or character flaws or, whatever, but he has demonstrated his loyalty to Trump. He has been deep in all of this shit for a long time, was personally spied on, and the FISA courts abused him personally, and he knows where the bodies are buried.
The current FBI director as Christopher Miller's chief of staff. And then you had Ezra Cohen-Watnick, who was promoted to the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence. He was also at the time, the Undersecretary of Defense for Special Operations and Low Intensity Conflict, which is like PSYOP stuff as well. And then he's currently now, and was shortly thereafter, that named to the Public Interest Declassification Board, where they're declassifying all these documents.
And I've shared a bunch of Ezra Cohen's. He doesn't go by Ezra Cohen-Watnick anymore. He's well aware of all of this. He and Kash Patel are well aware of the Q and devolution people, identifying them and their role in all of this, and they have disavowed completely. Tip your streamer, folks. My wife says Matt's working for slave wages tonight. I'm going a little extra long to go through all of this with you guys tonight. So pay it back. Tips.kingpill.com and share the stream with people. Let them know that schizo time is happening. Ezra Cohen is personally associated with Joshua Steinman. And I know Joshua Steinman was on Trump's National Security Council throughout all of this. And then there's, with that, you have the connection to Tulsi and the group of, I can never remember their name. But they were that like, I don't know, a strike groups, sort of that a little like intelligence strike group that went and made a presentation to Elon Musk about the election security issues. They were associated with Tulsi Gabbard and all of that. So Joshua Steinman and Ezra Cohen, there's a lot of overlap there. So I've been trying to piece together all these different threads and use them to update the framework to understand what's going on.
So that's notable. And so there's all these different moves. And then in that article that I sent you, if you scroll down a little bit, I don't know if you can pull this up on the screen, because there's one table in there where it has the NEFs.
The last one. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Hold on one second. The articles on your Substack are so thorough. I'm like, bloody hell.
See, that's my thing. Like, if I'm gonna put something out there, like, I want to speculate as little as possible, and I'm gonna give you guys all the facts and everything as I see it. And there's little room for speculation. This is why I'm so thoroughly convinced that I'm right about what happened. It's still a theory, I'll admit it, but I believe truly that devolution took place. Yeah, this is.
Spear Beast says, for the initiated, Ezra Cohen is who Wichter identified early on in his threads. Yes. That was the first place that I ever heard of Ezra Cohen was from Thomas Wichter.
Part 13 of a 25-part series.
Jeez.
If you scroll down, it starts off with the that executive order that I was talking about. And here's that first part is the Title 50 defense, war national defense. Right here, these are the national essential functions. So
right, those 8 functions you referred to earlier.
Yep. And if you scroll up just a couple more spots.
So the national essential functions here, NEF 1, ensuring the continued functioning of our form of government under the United States Constitution, including the functioning of the 3 separate branches of government. National essential function 2, providing leadership visible to the nation and the world and maintaining the trust and confidence of the American people. National essential function number 3, defending the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and preventing or interdicting attacks against the United States or its people, property, or interest. NEF 4, maintaining and fostering effective relationships with foreign nations. NEF 5, protecting against threats to the homeland and bringing to justice perpetrators of crimes or attacks against the United States or its people, property, or interests. National essential function number 6, providing rapid and effective response to and recovery from the domestic consequences of an attack or other incident. NEF 7, protecting and stabilizing the nation's economy and ensuring public confidence in its financial systems. And NEF 8, providing for federal government services that address the national health, safety, and welfare needs of the United States. So these are what are considered the national essential functions of the federal government. All of these things together. And this is an important one that I think people, there's way too many self-styled patriots who are constantly talking about and agitating for the collapse of the dollar or the diminishment of the stock market. And this here, a national essential function for the federal government, is protecting and stabilizing the nation's economy and ensuring public confidence in its financial systems. This is perhaps one big reason why, following this theory, Trump did just stand down. Because plunging the United States into a civil war would be catastrophic financially because of capital flight out of the United States. So this is a major factor that has to be considered in any sort of move. This is why the administration has to slow walk some of the changes. They can't just come in and go through the big sweeping, even if they had the capacity to, they couldn't do some of these big sweeping changes really quickly because they need to maintain the stability of the economy and ensure public confidence in its financial systems.
There's actually a definition. Scroll up the other way. Here's the definition of devolution from the Federal Continuity Directive number 1. So this is what something FEMA puts out, where they define how continuity works and the process for it, like for normal traditional executive agencies. Devolution is the capability to transfer statutory authority and responsibility from an organization's primary operating staff and facilities to other designated staff in alternate locations to sustain essential functions. So then when you scroll down and see those national essential functions, what this executive order actually does is reorganizes and reprioritize these in a classified manner. So we don't know what got prioritized or what got reorganized, but I think there's a handful of these, maybe even less. Maybe it's just one of these or two of these that I think the continuity government or devolution team was maintaining while Trump was away. Number 1, ensuring the continued functioning of our form of government under the United States Constitution, including the functioning of 3 separate branches. You can make an argument one way or the other that took place, because I personally do not believe we have 3 functioning branches of government. I don't think our Congress is legitimate. I don't think they were legitimately elected. And SCOTUS, certainly if Biden was not legitimately elected, his nomination to SCOTUS is not legitimate. SCOTUS isn't legitimate either.
Especially the Ketanji Jackson, who can't define what a woman is.
Yeah, isn't that insane? Yeah. Anyway, to sum it up, the primary goal of any continuity government plan is to maintain these in some form or fashion. Okay. And then if you go down a little further, scroll down, it's going to exit out of this, or you're in there you go. There's this executive committee. You'll see section 3, next section down. And this is where I would start. At the time, this executive committee, which was tasked with implementing and executing a continuity of government plan, that's a quote from the executive order, it consisted.
Real quick, I think it's worth keeping in mind that fact that we actually don't have a functioning federal government right now. We have a more functional executive branch than we've had in a long time. And Congress is slowly improving. In general, on net, I believe Congress is slowly improving. But by design, Congress is very, very hard to change quickly. And the Supreme Court is even harder. It's going to move even slower. So when you're establishing expectations for this administration or following administrations, you have to recognize that they're like, just because they might have nominal control over all 3 branches, or just because they might have won elections, that doesn't necessarily translate immediately to a fully functioning federal government that can produce the results that a fully functional, stabilized federal government would produce.
with implementing and executing a continuity of government plan. That's a quote from the executive order. It consisted of the Secretary of Defense, which would have been Christopher Miller, Secretary of Homeland Security, which at the time would have been Chad Wolf, Director of National Intelligence, which would have been John Ratcliffe, Assistant to the President for National Security Affairs, which would have been Robert O'Brien. He's a big one, I believe. Assistant to the President and Deputy Chief of Staff for Operations, which was Tony Ornato, who was also a Secret Service guy. And I think he came back this time around as well, but I could be wrong. Director for OMB, which is Russell Vaught. That guy's back as Director of OMB right now. And then this third one, the Office of Science and Technology Policy, is Kevin Drogemeyer. I don't believe he's back, but I could be wrong. But yeah, if you scroll down just a little bit, this executive committee, you'll see the quote, shall facilitate execution of the plan and other continuity policy. Let's go a little bit below these players here, and you'll see it. This executive order, it named the head of the NSA or his or her designee as the one who was the head or chair of this committee. So that points to Robert O'Brien. But by them saying or his or her designee, it could literally be anybody. I start here, but I can't prove anything of who was actually maintaining or running these things or what it was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the his or her designee means that like opens it up to could be just about anyone. A quick thing about Robert O'Brien. National Security Council under O'Brien focused on China. He aligned himself with Peter Navarro, a fellow hardliner on China. He threatened sanctions against China if it moved to pass a national security law that pro-democracy activists believe would undermine freedom in Hong Kong, and also criticized China for its actions amid territorial disputes in the South China Sea. Oversaw an increase in U.S. and allied military activity intended to guarantee freedom of navigation. And then, let's see. When many other intelligence officials who had been involved in briefing Trump on national security characterized Trump as inattentive, O'Brien disputed the characterization, saying Trump was, quote, laser focused on the issues at hand and asks probing questions throughout the briefings. It reminds me of appearing before a well-prepared appellate judge and defending the case. And then O'Brien was involved in early deliberations about reacting to the COVID-19 pandemic. In early March 2020, O'Brien and Alex Azar advised Trump to halt travel from Europe, disagreeing with several other Trump advisors, including Steve Mnuchin and Larry Kudlow. And according to Washington Post reporter Bob Woodward, O'Brien counseled Trump that, quote, this will be the biggest national security threat you face in your presidency. This is going to be the roughest thing you face. In May of 2020, O'Brien said of China's handling of the pandemic, quote, the cover-up that they did of the virus is going to go down in history along with Chernobyl. In December of 2020, O'Brien explained in an interview that China, quote, absolutely could have done more when it came to COVID-19, and that, quote, the Chinese loss of credibility will be very difficult for them to overcome. Then Brian Murphy, who was acting chief of intelligence at the U.S. Department of Homeland Security from March 2018 until August of 2020, alleged that he was instructed, quote, to cease providing intelligence assessments on the threat of Russian interference in the United States and instead start reporting on interference activities by China and Iran. John Cohen, who was Undersecretary of Intelligence at DHS during Barack Obama's presidency, stated, by blocking information from being released that describes threats facing the nation, undermines the ability of the public and state and local authorities to work with the federal government to counteract the threat. Thank you, Wikipedia, for including a random quote from some random other guy about this. This is the segment, Controversy over Russian Disinformation Efforts. Literally, there was a acting chief of intelligence who said something, and there was some other guy who said, that's really bad. Then a summit at the White House between Kosovo and Serbia was organized by Rick Grenell and scheduled for September 3 and 4, 2020. Grenell, along with O'Brien, co-hosted the talks. Kosovo awarded O'Brien the Presidential Medal of Merit for his work on the effort. O'Brien was in office when the United States brokered the Abraham Accords, under which the UAE and later Bahrain, Morocco, Oman, and Sudan normalized diplomatic relations with Israel. In August of 2020, O'Brien said that Trump should be eligible for Nobel Peace Prize after the initial Israel-UAE agreement. He served as part of a U.S.-Israeli delegation on the first commercial flight from Israel to the UAE on August 31 of 2020. The UAE and Israel moved to establish full diplomatic ties after Israel agreed to suspend a plan to annex parts of the occupied West Bank. O'Brien had advocated for other Arab and Muslim countries to join the accords. Trump awarded O'Brien, along with 6 other top aides, the National Security Medal for his role in achieving the agreement. And then it says, after losing the November 2020 election to Joe Biden, Trump attempted to subvert the election result and remain in power. O'Brien was among the small number of senior Trump administration officials to acknowledge Biden's victory, saying on November 16, 2020, that he would oversee a very professional transition by NSC to President-elect Biden's incoming administration. He remained National Security Advisor until Trump's term expired. Then in 2023, he was subpoenaed by special counsel Jack Smith as part of the special counsel investigation into Trump's handling of classified documents and efforts to overturn the 2020 election. O'Brien remained politically active after leaving the White House. He was an early supporter of J.D. Vance in his successful bid for a Senate seat in 2022. In late 2020 and 2021, O'Brien was seen as a possible dark horse contender for the 2024 Republican presidential nomination. And then an article published in The American Conservative suggested that O'Brien's reported presidential aspirations are a way to build his stature for a future appointment as Secretary of State or Secretary of Defense, adding, O'Brien remains in Trump's good graces, as well as staying in good standing in Washington's foreign policy community. However, throughout the lead up to the election, O'Brien contended he would never run if Trump decided to run again and that Trump would have his 100% support. He subsequently endorsed Trump on the first day of his campaign and organized a public letter of national security-related professionals who supported Trump's re-election. And then in February 11, 2025, Trump appointed O'Brien to the President's Intelligence Advisory Board. In July of 2022, O'Brien was elected chairman of the board of directors of the Richard Nixon Foundation. And he became a board member for the National Endowment of Democracy in 2025. He was raised a Catholic and then converted to Mormon in his 20s. His wife is of Afrikaner descent, and he's reportedly fluent in Afrikaans. So he's a very interesting character. That was Robert O'Brien, who was the National Security Advisor and one of the people on this devolution team.
Now, this didn't happen with the transition from Clinton to the Bush, or from Bush to Obama, or from Obama to Trump. There was nothing like this.
Not like this, no. Well, see, almost every president, I should say, has done some sort of continuity planning, like where they'll go in and typically they'll issue some sort of national security memo, like Trump has national security presidential memorandum. He used executive order. The current framework for continuity planning is actually Obama's framework, which he created with Presidential Policy Directive 40, PPD 40, but Trump went in and tweaked it with this executive order. So I think that is notable. But you're right, no other president has done something quite like Trump has with this. Not even close.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Then, this talks about implementation and how the chief of staff will be the one to like keep the president attuned to what's going on. And then there's some stories while Biden was in office of how Mark Meadows, who was Trump's chief of staff at the time, was like scroll down a little bit. You can read this article. Meadows has been meeting with former President Trump and cabinet members, in quotes, about plans to move forward in a real way, he claimed in the Newsmax interview on Friday.
Straight Buster says the conspiracy the conspirators refuse to get into. Yeah, isn't it strange? I have to care that there was 12 Israeli cell phones at the Utah Valley University campus. That's very important. This is like groundbreaking news that I need to revolve my entire consciousness around. But not this stuff. This stuff you can't pay attention to. This is slop.
Friday, he refused to divulge specifics, but he's been discussing with Trump, who he referred to as the president, at the former president's Bedminster Golf Club. So I thought that was just a notable little nugget there.
Right. Well, what you're describing adds to, or provide evidence for the expression that this is all a show.
Yes. So a lot of people say that. I don't quite believe it to that like the literal sense of that, because a lot of people think everything is fully under control and there's like, we're literally just watching a movie, and that takes not only our free will out of it, but it takes our responsibility to do anything out of it. And I don't think that's how it is. It also kind of takes away the actual enemy, and it makes the good guys the enemy, because if we're literally just watching a movie and we have no say over what gets done, everything's already taken care of, then my interpretation of that and the way some people describe it, that's the good guys, or the people we call the good guys, putting us through all this bad stuff just so that we can like, I don't even know what the end goal of that is. I think there's a real enemy. I think they can make moves and they can do damage. And I think we are trying to defeat them. I think Trump is trying to defeat them. I think he needs our help. I think a lot of the reason some of this stuff is taking so long is because we aren't out here like basically demanding some of these things. I think Trump uses the feedback loop. But yeah, I in a sense, you could say that we were watching a show or a movie during the Biden administration because it wasn't a real presidency. Mm-hmm. I'll give you that, but I don't want to get too literal with that. At least I know some people believe it. I'm nothing against them, but that's just not how I interpret it.
Okay. Then one of the questions.
Yeah, I agree. Straight Buster says you can be any kind of whack job, but not a Q-tard patriot. Really, like the Q-tard patriot walks alone. There is nobody more discriminated against in the world today than the Q-tard patriots. Fortunately, my president is a huge fan of his Q-tard patriots. And for that reason, I am a proud Q-tard patriot.
the questions I have. So he's devolved many of the presidential duties, some of them, to this team of people, and perhaps others as well, who they've seconded it to. Then why on earth did he, in his new cabinet now, has he got people like Susie Wiles in there?
Great question. No idea.
Oh, come on, John. Come on, John. You know.
We can speculate all day. Like when Trump got back in there, and we were waiting to see like who he was going to pick. We were talking about this all the time. We're like, well, it'd be really cool to see him start plugging in people from this list of individuals. I call them like the devolution team.
Mm-hmm.
And, I would have loved to see Christopher Miller come back as Secretary of Defense and Robert O'Brien come back as NSA. But what we ended up getting is a bunch of former Fox News hosts, and they've, for the large part, all been terrible. Like every one of them, in my opinion, have been terrible. And it's been so weird to see like people defend the actions of some of the clown show, because you got to look at these things as,
how dare you talk about Pete Hegseth that way? That is your war secretary, sir.
As two separate entities. And you could also look at some of the people in Trump's administration as part of the enemy. Because if Trump is really trying to give the government back to we the people, he is not only just trying to defeat the Democrats, he's trying to defeat the Republicans too, because the two-party system is really just one uniparty who is, they trade uniforms to keep us under control. But then another part of that is the media apparatus. And then all these like social media influencers conning people in the administration who keep us within that construct that we have such a tough time breaking out of. And a lot of people in the truth community, they look to like, oh, Trump named Kristi Noem as the head of DHS. We must worship. We cannot criticize anything she does. And then we're sitting here like, well, this is a joke. She's a joke. She hasn't done anything. She's
the truth community. Yes. Out is the truth community. In is the truth community. Slutty Milk is our conductor on the truth community train.
Like she just wants, she wants to go out and wear all her makeup and go on raids like she's actually doing it. Like it's such a clown show. And then when she gets fired, you're like, okay, see, we kind of told you that was a clown show. And we were right about that the whole time. You could have been talking about that the whole time, but instead you choose to like defend these TV characters. I think Trump is exposing that. I think that's why he's doing that. I don't think the administration itself is necessarily doing everything in Trump's best interest. I think Trump is operating outside of what the administration is doing. I think Trump is operating on his own path, so to speak. Like I look at Trump and his administration as two completely different things. And the only one I give the benefit of the doubt to ever is Trump himself. I do not give the benefit of the doubt to anybody in his administration. I don't know why you didn't bring some of these other ones back.
Yeah. And I would add to that the sense that I get from watching and observing Trump and speaking to commentators like you, plus, the others that come on my channel as guests, is he's incredibly smart and strategic.
Oh yeah.
And he's not operating on his own.
Yeah.
So, and then he communicates in such a way to throw people off, to throw everybody off. I'm sure 100%. He's thrown you off, John. He's certainly thrown me off a few times. It's like,
sure.
What?
Lord Breezy says Q-tard patriots will always be an asset because loyalty is the political gold standard. And if they are told they need to lay low for a while, they don't troon out. So true. So true. Jonathan Hemingway over on YouTube says there's revisionism happening right now by everyone regarding Charlie Kirk, but also Kirk was entirely tethered to this class of people he's blasting right now. Yeah, I think, I don't feel the need to add my voice to the chorus of people constantly demanding Trump fire this or that administration official just because they did something that I don't like. Like the man is literally known for "you're fired." Like that was literally his trademark phrase. When he's ready to fire someone, he's going to fire them. And if he hasn't fired them, it's because he doesn't have the reason to fire them now. And so I guess if there was zero people who were ever saying, oh, this person's fucking up, this person's a traitor, this person's whatever, then if nobody was saying it at all, then maybe I might feel compelled to. But as it is, every day is just a revolving door of which person in Trump's orbit are we going to freak out about today? And I'm just like, I'm just loyal to my president. And if he thinks a decision needs to be made, he has the mandate of heaven to make that decision, and he'll make it in his time. And it's not for me to trouble my little brain over.
You can never take him at face value. You're right. He leans into that caricature that the mainstream media created for him almost. Like if you go back to interviews of Trump in the 70s, he's calm, he's calculated, he's articulate, he's brilliant. Like it's a completely different version of the Trump that we see now. But now we have this cartoonish, like over the top, hilarious guy. And I think that's more of a show, because when he operates like that and he says ridiculous things, the media and everybody just latches onto it and they get sucked in. And so he has them over here sucked in on his something ridiculous he said when he's really operating over here, and they have no idea. They're none the wiser because they're too focused on something he said. You know what I mean?
My president loves to suck in the retards.
Yeah. Like one example of that comes to mind is what's happening with the Iran war. So the whole media are focusing on, that Iran won and Straits of Hormuz and Trump lost and everything. And what they don't see is how Trump has, and I think deliberately so, made it incredibly difficult for the US bases in the Middle East to be operational again. And also how he's disempowered and weakened the European Union, UK, and Ukraine
for sure
against Russia.
For sure. Yeah, there's something bigger going on, obviously, with the Iran situation. I mean, obviously, I don't want to see us involved in a foreign conflict, and I've said that since day one, but I'm giving Trump the benefit of the doubt that he's up to more than just, an actual war here on behalf of Israel, like everybody wants to say. I think it goes much deeper than that. One of my favorite readings, actually, is, and this is from another guy in Badlands. His name is Ghost of Base Patrick Henry. That's what he goes by. He says, or he posed the question, what if Trump is waging war on Israel using Iran as a proxy? And
From Jeff, Trump says, sleazebag Vindman loses tonight to a radical left lunatic. How cool is that? So true, Mr. President. So true. Vindman is a sleazebag.
And this is from another guy in Badlands. His name is Ghost of Base Patrick Henry. That's what he goes by. He says, or he posed the question, what if Trump is waging war on Israel using Iran as a proxy? And
I've thought that.
Yeah, and I think that's a pretty darn good reading of things.
Yeah, it's a little bit like, John, you, me, and another person, you, me, and GPBH, is that right?
Yeah, yep.
Okay, we're sitting at a table together, and I pinch him in such a way that he thinks you did it, so he then has a go at you.
Yeah.
I didn't do nothing, John.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So then I set you two up.
But it's also so much bigger than, everybody, when we talk war, we talk nation state.
Didn't do nothing.
I think the real enemy is within the intelligence community. I think that's the biggest threat anyway. And I think we're getting proof of that right now with all these declassifications.
Yeah.
There's a great clip of Trump from, it was, October of 2022 or something, 2022, 2023. It was one of the times when one of the indictments came out against him. And he came out at I think it was Mar-a-Lago or Bedminster, and he's given a speech. And he said, this prosecution is being done by the same weaponized intelligence community that for 7 years has been conducting illegal psychological warfare campaigns against the American people. And that's an exact quote. I've listened to that quote like a million times. And we're seeing that come out right now in these declassified documents. I think the most challenging enemy for him are the embedded, whether you call them deep state or global or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's the embedded enemy within the intel community that has been so easily able to subvert him the first time around, and they're still doing it now. People are still falling for it. And they have the media as the...
You want to see what's going to happen to the embedded enemy in the intel community. JD, Just Dance Vance. Shout out to Base Contrarian for breaking this important news. They have no idea what's coming for them.
As their mouthpiece. That's who he's fighting against. The Iran situation, that's something completely different. The real focus of most of what I think is going on and why he had to walk away was because of the weaponized intelligence community.
And I would go further that it's the weaponized community, the intelligence community, as the Praetorian Guard for the financialists that have been spawned out of the City of London.
Yeah, a lot of people, I haven't gone down the City of London rabbit hole yet.
Would you like to take a short trip there?
we could if you want.
Okay, very quickly, right? So the Bank of England was inaugurated in 1694. And I don't have the exact dates when, they went out sending ships to South Africa and Kenya. And
this is Rich is now going to pull a Vladimir Putin.
And I don't have the exact dates when, they went out sending ships to South Africa and Kenya and India and Australia to discover all those riches. But imagine, John, you are a landowner in Yorkshire. You've got a lot of land. And you hear there are riches, there is gold hanging off the trees in India. Okay. So you go to the Bank of England and you're not going to sell your land. You borrow some gold from the Bank of England.
Okay.
To then pay for a ship and a crew to go to India so you can plunder that nation.
Yeah.
You come back with ridiculous amounts of gold. You give the Bank of England its interest. You're now fabulously wealthy and you decide to go again. And you come back with even more riches and the Bank of England has even more money. But it's not just you, it's corporations are being created.
Yeah.
To go and plunder South Africa and Australia and Kenya and India and all these other places. Plus then you hit upon this amazing idea to sell opium to the Chinese in exchange for silver. And you make millions that way as well. And you're making millions from all the people that are trading the ships, and you're making millions from lending out gold, and you're making millions from offering insurance to all these ships around the world, and all this vast wealth is coming into your nation, and you're getting the massive cut of it as the Bank of England. Now you've got this massive pile of money. What are you going to do? Well, as well as furnishing your house and buying land and having many children or whatever, you're also going to create structures that extend and perpetuate your power. Now, one of the ways you do that, how come this tiny island of England ruled a quarter of the world at one point, including large, powerful, populous nations such as India, is through the cultivation of proxies.
Sure.
So you send your emissary to me. I'm a Rajasthan, I'm a Nawab somewhere in India with my, and you say, listen, you're gonna work for us now. And I say no, because I got integrity. And then I get killed in some freak accident, right? Get eaten by a tiger or something, right?
Yeah.
And then this replacement Nawab comes in and he says, sure. So you're cultivating all these proxies that are working for you. And then you set up structures like the European Union, like United Nations, like the League of Nations, like the Federal Reserve.
Oh, yeah.
That was set up by the City of London, like LIBOR. So the interest rates for the US dollar was set in London, not in the United States. And then any independent-minded president that comes along that wants to do their own thing and be independent of the British, like President McKinley, like Lincoln, like JFK,
Trump,
bang, they get killed by your agents. And and it just goes on and on and on. That's how they've done it.
Yeah, I mean that
great little summary there by the great patriot Rich. One thing that he mentioned there, but I wanted to highlight, Tweety Bird in the YouTube chat says the Hudson's Bay Company owned the eastern half of Canada and half the western U.S. Right. The proxies that they were using all over the place were corporate proxies. They were setting up companies. And the emergence of the United States government, the authorship of the Constitution, was born out of that. This is one thing about the United States government is a corporate state. And it operates and acts as a corporation. We're actually, we're moving in the Yarvinian direction as it is. But so then if you realize that, if you conceive of the United States as a like a corporate property that begins to establish an independent claim to its own assets, but it still has creditors who are constantly trying to lay claim to it. And this is how the United States government has emerged and developed, and then spread to the point where it took control over the entire continent. But it still has all of these old, primarily financial ties that are being worked out. And it wasn't just simply declaring independence that did that. Declaring independence was more like declaring that the United States was a unique, discrete entity that had its own claims. But then you have to be able to go on and defend those claims. So just merely diplomatically recognizing American independence is just like recognizing, oh yeah, America is a discrete entity now, but I'm still going to try to lay claim to that discrete entity. Real quick, in Florida, Senator Ashley Moody, in the Republican primary, in her Republican primary, going up against a primary opponent, she herself got more votes than both Democratic U.S. Senate candidates combined. So Alex Vindman and the chick that beat him, Angie Nixon, had 1,236,992 votes combined. Ashley Moody had 1,305,667 votes. Florida is red, extremely red.
That you're describing, one of the enemies that I see in devolution too. So I can see how they're kind of, like you said, it's the protectorate of that entity. I can see what you're saying for sure. That's the hard part, is because the enemy is so big and so powerful, and this is why I don't believe that we're watching a movie or any of that. It's hard to believe they've been taken out with all the real world damages, and it's hard to even point to anybody on a map and be like, that's the enemy, right? Because that's what we could typically do in most wars. But this war that Trump is fighting, that he needs our help in, I believe, it's so difficult to even put a face to the entity that we're fighting against.
Yeah, well, I also look at it as a fractal point of view from a home where there's domestic abuse. When the perpetrator of domestic abuse leaves the home, so when the United States kick Britain out, the perpetrator doesn't give up control. They want their country back.
Yeah.
So they do machinations and manipulations in order to exert control.
Yeah. Interesting.
And they had so much money and so much time. It was, I think, from about 1750 to 1920, something like that. The Bank of England was the biggest, most powerful, wealthiest central bank in the world.
I believe it. It's nuts. I'll have to look more into that.
Sure. Well, you could subscribe, comment, and like to my channel because I do that coverage a lot.
There we go. That's
Thank
what
you
I'll
very
do.
much.
That's what I'll do.
Anyway, so back to continuity of government.
Yeah. I don't even know where to go with this. I mean, I've written so much about the topic, and I've been talking about it for 5 years on my show that I sometimes forget how bad I am at like getting into the details and like telling the story of it.
Well, listen, you've written 25 Substack articles. We're not going to be able to go through them now. So what people need to do is need to subscribe to that Substack platform.
Thank you, Nevsky.
And read every single article. Let me know in the comments what you discovered. But
Patel, what is it? Patelpatriot.substack.com. I started out using a pseudonym. That's where you can find it.
All right, I was going to ask about that because you don't strike me as
Creek money.
I don't believe the polls. We will take more in the midterms than they think is possible. Troost.
So true. So true. And apologies, it was Creek Monkey. I can't be misnaming you. Thank you for the $50, Creek Monkey. There is a patriot getting his way onto the nice list. So true. We will take more in the midterms than they think is possible. I've been holding this line. I will continue to hold it. And please be like Creek Monkey and tip your streamer. You can see we're not even halfway to the goal yet. And someone should win some money tonight. Someone who signed up at forum.kingpill.com. That's right, not getting out of this chair. I ain't moving. Tips.kingpill.com. Geiger Capital says every primary in Florida has been called. About 95% of votes counted in 2 hours. Still, deep blue states will look Americans in the eye and insist that taking weeks to deliver election results is just part of democracy.
me as a Patel.
No, I'm not. I was a big fan of Kash Patel. I'd watched the show Plot Against the President or whatever back in 2020, and I was on this messaging board, and that's what I chose as my pseudonym, is Patel Patriot, and I just kind of stuck.
That's very good. Very good. Okay. Expressing the Hindu in you.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so how's it rolling out now, the continuity of
Said the
government?
Muslim Brit.
So that's one of the interesting things. With Trump back in office, I get this question all the time, like, is continuity government still going on or is it not? And I don't know for sure. But one of the more interesting things, that executive order I was talking about, 13961, the most important one, the day before Trump was to be inaugurated. Okay, so this is Joe Biden's last day in office. Joe Biden comes out and partially revokes that executive order. So the executive order that Trump established to implement continuity government devolution, Biden comes out and revokes it the day before Trump takes back over. And so at the time, I'm like losing my mind because is this like proof of some sort of phase change here? Like what does this mean? But yeah, I can send you a link here. He partially revoked that order. And so one reading of that is, yeah, continuity government's over, Trump's back in there. But another reading, and this is one I'm...
Don't go away!
Not one step back.
Indeed. Forward always. The patriot may walk alone, but he always walks forward.
starting to lean more towards as more time goes on is that we haven't really left continuity of government. I don't think we've exposed our election fraud infrastructure. I think the enemy is still massive within the intelligence community, the media. I think Congress is still like there's this laundry list of things that need to be fixed that haven't been fixed yet. And it's all the same problems that existed while Biden was in office. So I think while Trump is back as like the public facing president, I still think there's bigger things going on behind the scenes that we aren't fully aware of. And again, I don't know if I'm just describing that properly, but that I don't. The short answer is I don't know if it's still going on, but I could see circumstantial piece of evidence of why a lot of people still think it is ongoing, even though Biden partially revoked it.
Okay, but how could Biden partially revoke it when he wasn't the president? He was his Fisher-Price president.
See, that's the thing. I think there's multiple executive orders that during a Biden presidency were extended that didn't make sense. Executive Order 13848 regarding foreign interference in the United States election, that one was extended every September that Biden was still president. I don't know if he was forced to do that. I don't know if that was auto-penned, because that was a huge story of how Biden used the auto-pen to do a lot of things. I don't know if, did the good guys, Trump guys or devolution guys force his hand there? I don't know for sure. But again, going back to the baby in the playpen metaphor, he could still do things. He could still throw things at the wall. He could still revoke certain things. I just think there were certain, guardrails in place that he couldn't touch certain assets. He couldn't get under the kitchen sink and bonk his head on something. You know what I mean? That's the best way I look at it, even though it's not a perfect explanation. But here is the partial revocation of that executive order, and the date on it, January 19th of 2025. He revoked, I think, there were 8 total sections. He revoked 5 of them, and then he left 3 of them in place. Like, what are the odds of that?
That's most peculiar. Let me just share that.
There's also, I have an article while you're pulling that up. It's my part 16. The first half of it talks about, You know, we recently got the declassification of all this, how China interfered in our election. That's kind of part of the story they're trying to tell. Well, the first half of the article is all about this document that the Trump's White House put out the day before the election, basically outlining how China is the enemy. Okay. But the second half of it, halfway through, is a timeline of all the interesting and notable things that took place between November 3rd and when Joe Biden was inaugurated. And this is kind of like my roadmap of, like, you can tell me all this means nothing.
Hold on, you guys can't see this. Just a sec. There. Where we go one, we go all. We're going to fucking kill you. We're going where to fucking all. Pi Squared over on YouTube says 45, 46, 47. The nuclear football never left Trump. So true. So true. What do they mean by this?
But you really can't do that because it's got to be, there's so many interesting things. And I'll post that article in here too for you. That's my part 16, which you can find on my Substack, or you can go to devolution.us. It's also an easy compiled list of all my articles. But yeah, there's the proof. Partial revocation of Executive Order 13961, the executive order that implemented and executed a continuity of government plan put in place by Trump. Yeah, I think it might be worthwhile going through some of the timeline because there's quite a few notable things in there. Like the SolarWinds hack, I always forget about that one. You have Trump's Twitter as well is it's a great resource, like going back and with new context of the things.
Bobby Ballbag says, man, don't make me queue out again. Fuck. I'm cooming. You must queue out like this.
Quit messing with me or I'm gonna chud out. I'm chudding out. I'm gonna chud everywhere. I'm chudding out. I'm gonna chud. I'm gonna chud out. You're not gonna like me when I'm chuddy.
You're not gonna like Bobby Ballbags when he's chuddy.
Things Trump was tweeting about at the time, very notable. Like a lot of the declassified documents. What I'll do is I'll look at what happened in these declassified documents, and then I'll go back and see what Trump was tweeting about. And you can almost prove that Trump knew exactly what was going on within the intelligence community based on his tweets. So this is the timeline again. Part 16, November 3rd is the date of the election. November 8th is when Biden was declared the winner. November 9th is when he starts making those moves at the Department of Defense. Chris Miller, Anthony Tatak, Kash Patel, Ezra Cohen-Watnick. November 12th, he issues this executive order basically targeting China's investment, like the CCP and what things that invest in them. And that actually targeted, I think, Hunter and Joe Biden because Bohai Investments was invested in a lot of these CCP companies. November 18th is a big one. This is when there's this famous clip of Ezra Cohen-Watnick. He's at, what fort is it? It's one of the forts. And they're talking, this is where they basically elevated special operations forces. So they didn't have to go through the bureaucratic red tape. They could just report directly to the Secretary of Defense, and they're basically acting on their own. So they became a principal staff assistant. And I thought that was very notable. December 3rd is the date that D&I Ratcliffe wrote his op-ed in the Wall Street Journal talking about China being national security threat number one. December 7th is that executive order that I was talking about, the devolution executive order. December 9th, John Ratcliffe announced that Space Force is going to become the 18th member of the intel community. And I know a lot of theories floating around about what Space Force may have monitored during the election, which are interesting. December 12th.
And that is an interesting thing about what Space Force could have monitored during the election. And also Trump has mentioned many times now with regard to Iran that Space Force has the way he describes it is funny. He's like, we've got these really special cameras where we can even read the name tag on a guy's overalls. Of course, all the name tags say Muhammad, but so that's very interesting. And Ratcliffe's involvement in all of this is one of the reasons why I have retained my belief that Ratcliffe is a patriot.
12th, Ratcliffe goes to the Army-Navy game with Trump. He rode in the helicopter with Trump to the game. And then the very next day is when Trump starts tweeting about the voter fraud. They cannot be legally certified. There's glitches in the machines. And he said the election is under protest. Notable. December 13th is when they start talking about the SolarWinds hack. December 15th, Ezra Dan Scavino talks about this historical moment in the Oval Office, which I thought was really interesting. And he says, I'll share more at a later time. But the picture here is from June 1st, which is when Trump did his St. James Bible Walk or St. John Bible Walk. If you remember that from June 1st of 2020 during the insurrection. A lot of people think that could be when he maybe signed the Insurrection Act, but I don't know. I'm not convinced. More tweets about the election machines. And then December 18th is a big day. It's when, so Executive Order 1384, are you familiar with that executive order?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's the one that has to do with election interference, or foreign interference in an election. What this really did is it required our intelligence community to issue multiple assessments. The first one due within 45 days.
Jeff!
Sky Dorito patriotism.
Why is Dale having such a hard time saying patriot-related words today? Sky Dorito patriotism. Oh, patriotism. I see what you're doing, Dale. Brilliant. It's me, a patriotist. We're almost halfway to the goal, folks. The viewership has dropped off over on Kick, but it's stayed up on YouTube, so I'll keep it going a little bit longer here. As long as the tips keep coming in, I'll keep streaming.
5 days in an election, and it's supposed to essentially tell the president and the public whether there was interference in our election. Okay, so it was due December 18th, but there was conflicting reports from within the intelligence community. They delayed it till January 7th, but December 18th is when it was actually due.
Remember this video here where Chris Miller thanked Vice President Pence for his efforts in the most complex military operations in the country's history, right about that same time. Very interesting comments.
Within the intelligence community, they delayed it till January 7th, but December 18th is when it was actually due. And then if you go to January 6th, the fake insurrection, December 7th is when they actually come out with that, the report. And the report said from Executive Order 13848 that, yeah, Russia kind of interfered in the election. They tried to help Trump. China didn't do anything. And, other countries tried, but nothing. They basically painted the picture that it was the most secure election in history.
So this report was supposed to come out December 18th. Then it got delayed, did not come out December 18th. Then it came out January 7th, the day after the so-called insurrection. And it said Russia was sort of involved. China was not involved at all. Here's very particular relevance now to the declassification dumps that have been happening recently, showing that there was a concerted effort within the intelligence community to go to proactively hide all of the evidence implicating China or Chinese-linked actors.
Which we are getting now through these recent declassifications that China, it wasn't as secure as you guys said it was. Also, China didn't have zero role in this. There were people within the intelligence community who were actively trying to get the message across that, yeah, there's some shenanigans that took place here, guys. Like, what are we doing? But they were suppressed. The weaponized intelligence community struck again and drowned them out. Like, we're getting that stuff today. So that's notable. And then let me get down here to the end.
Ballot dumps?
Dumps. They call them dumps. Big, massive dumps.
And this is actually, there's two things at the end here that I think are notable. So January 13th is the start of Trump starting to issue these national security presidential memorandums. I said he does 10 in the last 10 days. This first one comes on January 13th, I believe. Again, these national security presidential memorandums, they're directives that essentially implement the president's agenda when it comes to national security matters. Some of them are classified, some of them are not. We still don't know how many, there could be more than this that were classified that we don't know about, but at least we do for sure know that there were actually, no, I lied. It's 8 in the last 8 days, not 10. 8 in his last 8 days in office, when he had averaged one every 53.7 days before that. He issued 8 in his last 8 days. And then let me show you this last thing here too. On January 18th, so this might get confusing, but you know how we have DEFCON for if things are going really crazy in our country, we got to raise the DEFCON level. And then if it's DEFCON 1, we're on red alert, we're at full scale war. Well, we have a COGCON, 4 levels of COGCON 2. That's continuity of government preparedness. So if it's COGCON 4, it's just standard, everything's fine, nothing to worry about. We get lowered down to 3, then okay, well, we better start taking the next step to be prepared. COGCON 1, that is full scale, we're ready to go. Well, on January 18th, the government sent out notifications to numerous people. There were thousands of people who were reporting that they had received notification that the COGCON level was lowered to 2. So that's one step away from full scale implementation of continuity of government.
So this is 2 days before Joe Biden's inauguration.
2 days before Trump left office. To me, that's a pretty big indicator. And I did a whole article on this as well in my series. And then, that might be all the interesting stuff from the timeline, other than 3 minutes before Trump left office.
And then there was also this: Trump refused to provide information about current operations, particularly in the special operations realm, because they are pre-decisional. There's this big hullabaloo over the transition. And there was lots of media articles about how the Trump transition team was obstructing. They weren't getting certain information over. They weren't being accommodating. And then some of Trump's people were like, no, we're being so totally accommodating. This is great. It's fantastic. Don't worry at all. There was clearly something was being contested during that time, and the media was trying to get out and frame it.
This quote unquote left office. The Pentagon sent out millions of line article on this as well in my series. And then, yeah, I mean, that might be all the interesting stuff from the timeline, other than 3 minutes before Trump left office, quote unquote left office, the Pentagon sent out millions of dormant IP addresses. I don't know if you remember that story from back on January 20th of 2021. Yeah, man, there's so much circumstantial evidence. It's hard to even get through it within.
So remember what I said earlier about the person who went did the investigation and determined that Joe Biden was the first president in like recent history to take the oath of office and be officially sworn in after noon. It was at 12:06 or 12:03 or something like that. And all the others had always been before that. And 3 minutes before, the Pentagon gave control of millions of dormant IP addresses to a Florida company. Mar-a-Lago is in Florida. Florida is Patriot-occupied territory. What could this mean?
Within an hour, but...
which is why people need to subscribe.
Yeah, I'd appreciate it. It's for free, too. You can subscribe for free. Support if you choose to, but everything is out there for free. I believe in that.
Yeah, they need to subscribe to all your various... I mean, is there one central repository, badlandsmedia.com?
Well, so if you're looking for just the devolution stuff, it's devolution.us. It has
devolution.us.
It has a pretty good introduction article, like that kind of generally lays out the theory, and then it gets into like the meat and potatoes. If you're looking for everything else I do, because the series I wrote over the course of about 2 years, and I don't think it's done yet because I don't think the full story's been told, but it's like kind of on pause for now. What I've been doing since writing this is starting that Badlands Media. It's a collective of, researchers, independent journalists. It's a media company. And we do all of our shows. I do 11 to 12 shows a week over there. Sometimes we talk devolution. Sometimes it's geopolitics. Some stuff's financial. Like there's a little bit of anything for everybody there.
Okay, absolutely fabulous. I'll have the links, or the main links, in the description below. I do recommend people go check them out. John, thank you so much. This has been absolutely fascinating. And it's like I keep digging in. It's like, oh, there's this, and this fits with this, and this fits with this.
Yeah, we'll do it again sometime. I can try to spell it out a little clearer.
No, this was good. This was good. If you thought this was good, let us know in the comments. If you thought that this was bad, tell us in the comments that it was good.
Or tell me what...
This is another guy that Rich has been doing some interviews with lately about explicitly about Q, and he's a great resource for all of that. Straight Buster says, "I'm trusting so fucking hard right now." Yeah, baby. Yes, you must trust. You must be in the mindset of trusting. I've got a couple other things here that I gathered just real quick. Check this out. This is James Percival. The DHS General Counsel, just posted by DHS, the DHS Twitter account. Look at this patriot right here.
I mean, the issue is this. You talked about it in your opening. This whole asylum thing from a lot of these countries is a total scam. These people are not going to be persecuted on a protected ground in their home country. They want to come here because it's the greatest country in the world. But for a very long time, people file these frivolous or even fraudulent asylum applications. They do it to gum up the works, to delay deportation, and to get work authorization. And for years, nobody ever went after the attorneys. But if attorneys are filing false documents, that is illegal, and there will be consequences. I mean, the issue is this. You talked about it in your opening. This whole...
Going after the attorneys submitting fraudulent asylum claims. Not doing anything. The administration's not doing anything at all. They're asleep at the wheel. Thank you, Lurch, for the Patriot Bucks. $47 worth of Patriot Bucks from the great, towering Patriot Lurch. And then a couple of these. First of all, you got James Fishback 3 hours ago. If you're already in line, stay in line. They legally have to let you vote. Too big to rig. And one of the great Doyum, one of our great Patriot posters, AFRYM76, says the Talmudic Network sends its regards.
Tonight
And then I'll follow that one up with this here. Fishback, lost. Bilzerian, lost. Groypers, lost. Total Patriot victory.
Everybody, yeah. Rock your body, yeah. Everybody, yeah. Rock your body right. Back streets back, all right. Oh my God, we're back again. Brothers, sisters, everybody say.
Captive's back! And the last thing I will leave you guys with tonight, an important Sunday reminder brought to you on Tuesday from JD Vance. Lock in, Patriot. We are going to win.
But I'm fundamentally hopeful about our country. I think we're going to figure it out. I think we're going to have a better next generation than this generation. The best weapon the opposition has is to allow the people in this room, the people listening to this podcast, to get depressed. Despair is a sin. And despairing is exactly where they want us to be. The country's not going to be saved by people who are depressed and have given up. It's going to be saved by people who believe in the future. So believe in the future. I certainly do, and we're not going to win without it.
So very true. A truke, they're calling it. Thank you guys for joining me here tonight. Enjoying a little bit of schizo content. Hopefully I have satisfactorily entertained the Patriots and contributed to the Patriot cause tonight. Young Boy Bay! Which one? You mean this one? Oh, I gotta actually share the screen.
Got a question for you, better answer now. Yeah. Am I original? Yeah. Am I the only one? Yeah. Everybody.
Oh yeah, I guess you guys couldn't hear the tip because I stopped sharing the screen. It was Dale saying, "Show me that faggot dancing again." Here, I wonder if I could replay it. There we go.
Show me that faggot dancing again.
Incredible scenes. Thank you guys. Have yourselves a very good Patriot evening. I will be back tomorrow with more content to entertain and inspire and motivate and white pill you. Please do go, whenever you're hearing this, go over to tips.kingpill.com. Drop a little thank you there. I'll make sure you get your credit during the stream. You can also go to Cash App or Venmo. Use @KingPilled for those. Or join the King Pill Discord, kingpilled.com. The more of the income can be consistently predictable month to month, the more of the income based on subscriptions, the better. But also don't like, it can't go down. And also go to beta.ewbsx.com. Become a beta male. Step into the cyberbullies world. Create your account. beta.ewbsx.com. Come join the movement. And I'll be back tomorrow with another episode of the Astrolabe. Until then, I leave you with the one and only Hulk.
When they took a shot at my hero, and they tried to kill the next president of the United States, enough was enough, and I said,